Chapter 3255. Luo Duan. It's not that I don't want to help you. I want to advise you that Linny is not a person to be trifled with. You'd better not go against him. Ancestor Xianxin pondered for a moment and said seriously, Brother, what do you mean? Why is Linny not a person to be trifled with? Did you listen to the rumors? I heard before that Lin Yi could instantly kill an expert at the peak of the late stage of heaven stage. But that's just a rumor. It doesn't count. Luo Duan didn't expect his elder brother to believe these nonsense. He suddenly found it funny that Lin Yi was chased by my son until he was forced to retreat. He could only injure my son. It's not a big deal at all. As he spoke, Luo Duan recounted the previous process to Ancestor Xianxin in detail. Luo Duan, is what you said true? Ancestor Xianxin was shocked after hearing it. In that case, Lin Yi was not a threat at all. He didn't think that his younger brother would lie. Although the two brothers hadn't seen each other for more than 50 years, Ancestor Xianxin believed that Luo Duan wouldn't lie to him on such a big matter. Of course it's true that Lin Yi is only at the peak of the early stage of heaven stage. He is indeed a little more powerful than the other peak of the early stage of heaven stage. Being able to injure my son also proves this point. However, it's not a serious injury. A recover pill can completely solve the problem. Luo Duan said. Oh, Ancestor Xianxin couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Things seemed a little unusual. You mean Lin Yi ran overseas? Yes, Lin Yi is here. As he spoke, Luo Duan told Ancestor Xianxin what Lin Yi did here. Lin Yi went to look for the blue crystal. Ancestor Xianxin was slightly surprised. He naturally knew what the blue crystal was used for. It was a material that could be used by blacksmiths. Tagan Long needed the blue crystal to refine the essence chi necklace. However, before Tagan Long could refine it, Lin Yi had snatched away the manual and essence chi niden. Then he was injured, so the matter was delayed. Could it be that Lin Yi was looking for the blue crystal to refine a profound chi necklace? Patriarch Xianxin could not be blamed for thinking this way. After all, for cultivators, the blue crystal was only used for forging weapons. There was no other use for it. As for whether Lin Yi was a blacksmith, Patriarch Xianxin did not think too much about it. In his opinion, since Lin Yi could make an automatic medicine cauldron, he might be able to forge weapons automatically. Even if he could not, it would not be difficult to forge a essence necklace. He might be able to do it using other special methods. Big brother, what's wrong? Luonan was slightly taken aback. That blue crystal can only be used by blacksmiths. No one else can. I still have a lot of it here. Big brother, do you need it? I have a lot too. I don't need it. I just suspect that Lin Yi picked up a weapon. Patriarch Xianxin shook his head and said, Forget it, let's not study this. Although Lin Yi's performance on your side is relatively weak, there are a few rumors here. They don't seem to be fake. Let me tell you. As he spoke, Patriarch Xianxin told the legend of Lin Yi to Luonan. After listening, Luonan clicked his tongue in wonder. He had some doubts in his heart. The deaths of peak late stage and great perfection peak late stage experts were also a fact. He did not think that Patriarch Xianxin did not confirm whether these people were dead or not. So these people must be dead. As for how they died, and whether it had anything to do with Lin Yi, he did not know. But it seemed that Lin Yi was really strange. Thinking of this, Luonan nodded and said, Big brother, I understand what you mean. Let's forget about Lin Yi. I will not take the initiative to provoke him for the time being. Everything will wait until the truth is out. And I will carefully investigate Lin Yi. Wait for my news. Patriarch Xianxin said. He was actually very puzzled. What was going on with Lin Yi? Why did the strength he showed not match the rumors? Okay, big brother, there is one more thing. Isn't the Five Elements sect related to the Heavenly Elixir sect? Can you help me to buy some first-grade automatic medicine cauldrons? Luonan asked. Oh, this matter, no problem. Patriarch Xianxin agreed after listening and said, This medicine cauldron was made by my son-in-law. It is only sold under the Heavenly Elixir sect's brand. I will give you 10 later. Ah, thank you, big brother. Luonan said happily after listening. It's a small matter. Patriarch Xianxin shook his head and said, Luonan, When I am ready, you can come and get it. Us two brothers, let's get together. Okay. Luonan readily agreed this time. And bring your son too. I have never seen my nephew. Patriarch Xianchen said. Luonan and Patriarch Xianchen ended the call. And Patriarch Xianchen called Kong Mingming over. Father-in-law, why are you looking for me? After Kong Mingming came over, he asked respectfully. It's like this. Go and investigate Lin Yi, especially Lin Yi's battles with the Heaven Stage Masters, and the process of killing the Heaven Stage Masters in seconds. Investigate them in detail. Patriarch Xianchen ordered. Oh, this. What is there to investigate? Father-in-law, is there a problem? Kong Mingming was slightly stunned and asked curiously. And it's like this. Therefore, Patriarch Xianchen told Kong Mingming about Lin Yi's conflict with the Overseas Cultivators Association in Europe. After listening, Kong Mingming's eyes suddenly lit up. If this was true, then it meant that Lin Yi wasn't as scary as the rumors made him out to be. If that was the case, then he wouldn't have to be afraid of Lin Yi anymore. He was afraid that Lin Yi was invincible, so he didn't dare to make a fuss about it. But now, thinking of this, Kong Mingming quickly nodded and agreed. Okay, father-in-law. I will go and investigate this matter now. And you go. If there is anything you can't figure out, just report to me. We will discuss it together. Patriarch Xianchen said. I understand. After receiving the order, Kong Mingming excitedly went to investigate. After Kong Mingming left, Patriarch Xianchen fell into deep thought. He had never thought that the Overseas Cultivators Association would be his younger brother's force. If that happened, the Five Elements sect would be even more powerful than before, and they would have a greater say in the future plan. Chapter 3256. After all, this plan, with the participation of the association, it would be a great help. Sky-class late-phase peak full circle, each and every one of them would be useful. Lin Yi ran with Su Shihan and Cheng Yi. He didn't know how far they ran, how many small towns they passed, and finally, Lin Yi's remaining strength was used up. Lin Yi had no choice but to stop and put Su Shihan and Cheng Yi on the side of the road. Although, Lin Yi knew that the possibility of them finding him was very low after running so far, and not in a straight line, Lin Yi still didn't dare to be careless. After putting Su Shihan and Cheng Yi down, Lin Yi hid behind a haystack near an open-air farm. I'm sorry, Lin Yi, I caused you trouble. Su Shihan looked at Lin Yi apologetically. Lin Yi waved his hand. It's not your fault. He Tianzu being interested in you is just a small problem. The real problem is that I killed their elder Qin. But it's not a big deal. Didn't we run away? Is Yang Qiqi okay? Su Shihan was worried about Qiqi's safety. I'll give her a call and ask. Even if Su Shihan didn't say anything, Lin Yi was going to call Qiqi to ask about her current situation. The call went through quickly, and Qiqi's worried voice came from the other side. Lin Yi bro, how are you guys? We escaped smoothly, it's fine, don't worry about us. You on the other hand, will you make enemies with the association because of this? Lin Yi asked worriedly. It's fine. They won't dare to do anything to me. Qiqi shook her head. Plus, I'm not stupid enough to admit our relationship. I'm just saying that you helped me during the test, that's why I treated you well. That's good. Lin Yi nodded, letting out a breath of relief. It seemed that Qiqi wasn't as dumb as he thought she was. But it was understandable. This was young Qiqi's turf, and Qiqi had always been a guest during those tests. She was weaker than the others too. Who would they bully if not her? But young Qiqi was from the association, and that explained why she was leveling up so quickly. The association would definitely give her some physical practitioner's body refinement medicine regularly. Brother Lin Yi, are they not chasing after you? Do you want me to scout for you? Qiqi asked. Please don't. However, Lin Yi rejected her decisively. He quickly reminded her, Qiqi, don't be careless. Although they won't dare to do anything to you, you are still related to me. It won't be good if they get suspicious. What you need to do is to take the initiative to apologize to the association and cut all ties with me, understand? Qiqi wasn't too willing. Pretending that she had nothing to do with Lin Yi was fine, but cutting all ties with him was a little. Chi-Chi, listen to me. I still need you to scout for information in the future. Nothing can happen to you. Lin said seriously. All right. Chi-Chi knew that Lin probably had other things for her to do in the future. She could only nod. Also, that blue crystal, if the association asks, don't tell them you bought it for me. Just tell them you bought it yourself. Lin instructed. If they ask you what you want to do, tell them that you heard that blue crystals can be used to make divine weapons. Buy them and collect them. And see if you can find someone to make them for you in the future. All right, I understand. Chi-Chi nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Also, if they ask me and Shirhan why we're here at the auction, just tell them that you're here. We're just here to watch the show, but we didn't see anything too good. Lin said. All right, I understand. Chi-Chi was a smart person. She knew that Lin wanted her to help him collect the other materials. If she said that Lin needed it, then she wouldn't be able to participate in the auction anymore. Then let's do it. After I settle down, we'll go to Island X. We'll meet there. Lin said. Island X was one of the places where Lin lived when he was young. His master and mistress lived there. It had been so many years since his master left, and he never went there again. Lin, Shirhan, and Cheng-Yi took advantage of the dark to come to a small town nearby. They didn't dare reveal their identities, so they didn't stay in a hotel. Instead, they went to a bath center. They could rest there at night, but they didn't need to register. It was very convenient. Lin Yi's guess was right. Before Chi-Chi could even go apologize to the association, the people from the association had already come to find her. They wanted to know more about her situation. But when young Chi-Chi came to the guild, the chairman was very polite to her. Young Chi-Chi, please have a seat. I've called you here because there's something I'd like to know. President He, I'm sorry. I didn't know that Ling Yi was the enemy of the association. Chi-Chi said apologetically. Please punish me, President He. Chi-Chi said apologetically. Chi-Chi, what are you doing? He Luonan waved his hand. I'm not blaming you. I know you don't know, so it's not your fault. I just want to know more. All right, go ahead. Chi-Chi nodded. It's like this. You and Linny, how did you meet? He Luonan asked. Lingy. That's Linny. During the test, he changed his name to Lingy. In the Ice Palace test, I was bullied. Linny saw that I was a girl, alone, so he helped me out. Chi-Chi said. After that, in the Sky Elixir test, he helped me as well. So we became friends. He Luonan nodded. It was more or less what he guessed. Chi-Chi and Lin Yi could only be considered strangers who met by chance. They were just slightly better friends. They didn't have any other relationship. Then why did he come here? He came here to help Shirhan and Cheng-Yi contact an entertainment company. As the host, of course, I had to entertain them, Chi-Chi said. Chapter 3257. I was the one who suggested the auction actually. I said that there might be some resources useful to practitioners being auctioned off, and we'll let them join in the fun. Chi-Chi said. But there's nothing useful to them in the auction anyway. That's right, Chi-Chi said. Oh, the blue crystal? He Luodong nodded. That. I just bought it to keep. Chi-Chi suddenly felt a little embarrassed. I heard that blue crystal is a material for forging weapons. So I was thinking that I'd collect some materials and see if I could ask someone to forge a weapon for me when I reach Sky Class. Oh! He Luodan paused after hearing Chi-Chi's words. He didn't think that Chi-Chi would buy this blue crystal for this purpose. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chi-Chi, the blacksmith profession has disappeared for a long time, don't you know? Even if you collect all the materials, you won't be able to forge a weapon. I don't know. Chi-Chi shook her head. Our association doesn't have it, but the ones in China don't either? One look at Chi-Chi's face, and he Luodong believed her. The information in the association was very limited, and all the practitioners here got their information from the association. The association had never mentioned anything about blacksmithing, so it was normal that Chi-Chi didn't know about it. Plus, blue crystal was one of the materials for blacksmiths, and this was a top secret. Normal practitioners didn't know about it, and he Luodong only knew a thing or two, because he grew up in the Five Elements sect. As a result, he didn't think that this was what Linny wanted. After all, Linny and Chi-Chi weren't that close, and Linny wouldn't tell Chi-Chi that he wanted it. It was a secret, and if he were Lin-Yi, he wouldn't tell her anything. The only possibility was that Chi-Chi was telling the truth, and that this was what she needed. There shouldn't be any blacksmiths in China. Luodong shook his head, not caring about this anymore. But if you want to collect it, go ahead. Chi-Chi, thank you for your cooperation. Go get your training resources for this month, and you can go back. Thank you, Chairman He. Chi-Chi said quickly. Luodong nodded and didn't say anything else. As far as he was concerned, Chi-Chi wasn't suspicious, and he only called her over to ask some questions before letting her go. Chi-Chi let out a breath of relief after leaving, but she didn't show anything out of the ordinary. She went to get her training resources and left the association. After Linny settled down, he smiled bitterly. He wanted to go out with Su Shirhan to relax, but he didn't expect something like this to happen. Fortunately, he had the wind chaser boots, otherwise, he wouldn't be able to escape this disaster. But at least he was temporarily out of danger, and the cooperation between Su Shirhan and Chengyi was definitely not going to happen. Linny wouldn't allow them to work with companies here, otherwise, if the association wanted to use them as a hostage and send Linny to his death, it would be troublesome. This way, he'd lose some income. Thinking about Xiaoke's orphanage gave him a headache. It was too big, and it was too late to stop now. Orphans from all over the country were being sent over, and with Xiaoke and the dean's personalities, they wouldn't reject these children at the door. As Linny was thinking about these things, his phone rang. Linny thought it was Chi-Chi, but when he took out his phone, it was Dafeng Bro from Red Conch. Dafeng, what's up? Linny quickly picked up the phone. Mr. Lin, it's like this. After a period of diligent investigation, I obtained some information. The addresses of the poison production bases of the Red Conches are all stored in the headquarters of the Red Conches. In the safe in the general manager's office of the Conch building, there is a document with the detailed coordinates of each poison production base. When I attended this year's headquarters meeting, the general manager of the Conch group, who is also the leader of the Red Conches, asked his secretary to retrieve the document from the safe when he was introducing the performance of the Red Conches. It was a yellow envelope. Elder brother Dafeng quickly said. However, Zhangduozu only introduced the profits of each base. He didn't say the specific location of these poison refining bases, but I saw with my peripheral vision that there are map coordinates on it. Oh, Dafeng, are you sure? This news made Linny very excited. He'd been looking for Armadillo all this time, not only for himself, but also for Ziyu. Yes, I'm sure. Dafeng Bro said with certainty. Good. If this is true, then I'll reward you heavily when we get back. I'll raise your strength to Earth-class late-phase peak. Linny said. This. Dafeng Bro was startled. He didn't expect Lin Yi to give him such a generous reward. Earth-class late-phase peak. If he really had that strength, then he might get a chi-gathering pill from the headquarters, or some other elixir to level up his training. That way, his strength would increase by another level, and he would be able to take on a more important position. With that thought, Dafeng Bro said excitedly, Mr. Lin, if I can raise my strength to Earth-class late-phase peak, then I can even get a position in the headquarters. At that time, I'll continue to work for you, Mr. Lin, and find out where your friends are. Okay, Linny said faintly. Tell me, what's the address of the Red Conches headquarters? The headquarters of the Red Conches is in Europe's Realita town. On the Sky Crater Road, there's a red skyscraper called the Conch Skyscraper. That's the headquarters. Dafeng Bro said. Realita town. Buffed. Linny didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard the name. When Linny entered the spa center, he already felt that the name of the town was familiar. It was as if he'd heard it somewhere before. Now that Dafeng Bro said it, Linny realized that the town he was in was Realita town. Chapter 3258. What's wrong, Mr. Lin? Brother Dafeng didn't know. When he heard Lin Yi's laughter, he felt strange. Nothing. Which floor is the general manager's office on? Lin Yi asked. I'm not sure about this. We had a meeting in the conference room. As for which floor is the general manager's office on, I'm not sure either. Brother Doffing said apologetically. I can't find out about this. It's okay. I'll find out myself. Lenny nodded. This was a small matter. As long as he was sure that the document was in the general manager's office, it would be fine. Okay, Mr. Lin, be careful. Brother Doffing reminded. If Lenny was fine, then he, Brother Doffing, would get more benefits in the future. If something happened to Lenny, then he would basically retire from his current position. Perhaps he might even be dragged into this matter. Lenny hung up the phone and walked to the private room where Su Shirhan and Cheng-Yi were resting. He knocked on the door, and soon, Cheng-Yi's voice came from inside. Who is it? It's me, Lenny said. As soon as Lin Yi's voice fell, the door opened. Cheng-Yi was wearing a nightgown. Her hair was wet as she stood in front of him. Her wheat-colored skin was shining under the moisture of the steam. This made Lin Yi's eyes suddenly lit up. Needless to say, a girl like Cheng-Yi who was full of wild beauty was quite attractive to men. Lin Yi was tempted once before. Now looking at Cheng-Yi standing in front of him so coolly, Lin Yi still felt a little unnatural. Are you guys showering? Lin Yi didn't expect them to still be showering. No, Xiaohan is in the sauna. I'll have to switch later. Cheng-Yi smiled. Do you think girls are like you, just taking a shower? Lin Yi was slightly stunned and then smiled bitterly. Yeah, every time Miss and Shu took a bath, they would take a bubble bath or a sauna. It was just that Lin Yi didn't think so much. You're looking for Xiaohan? Seeing that Lin Yi was stunned, Cheng-Yi smiled and asked. She felt a little sour in her heart. Lin Yi probably wouldn't take the initiative to look for her, right? He must be here to look for Su Shirhan. You are fine too, Lin Yi said. I have to go out for a while. Text me if you need anything, call me if it's urgent. Don't worry about me. Don't leave this place. You're going out? Cheng-Yi was stunned and asked. Yeah, there's something I need to do. Lin Yi didn't go into specifics, but he didn't need to. Well then pay attention to your safety. Little Han and I will wait for you here. Cheng-Yi nodded and did not ask much. Instead, she softly said. Cheng-Yi was wearing a bathrobe, and she was telling him that she and Xiao Han were waiting for him here. No matter how he heard it, it was a bit ambiguous. However, regardless of whether Cheng-Yi was seducing him or not, Lin Yi was going to leave. Looking at Lin Yi's back, Cheng-Yi sighed. Indeed, just like what Lin Yi guessed, Cheng-Yi really was seducing Lin Yi. She already told Lin Yi about her identity, so she didn't need to hide anything. She didn't need to hide her love for Lin Yi. However, it seemed that Lin Yi didn't have any feelings for her. Shaking her head, Cheng-Yi closed the door and walked towards the bathroom. She wanted to talk to Su Shirhan about Lin Yi. After Lin Yi left the bathroom, he flagged down a taxi and said to the driver, Tianqing Road. Lin Yi spoke in English, so the driver could understand him. As for why Lin Yi was going to Tianqing Road, the driver didn't ask much. It seemed that his English wasn't very good. He only knew basic conversation. But the more it was like this, the happier Lin Yi was. It was best if no one asked him. The sky had just brightened. Tianqing Road wasn't a commercial street, so there weren't many people walking. After Lin Yi got out of the car, he began to look for a red building. There weren't many buildings on this street. Soon, Lin Yi found a red building marked Conch Group on the side of the street. Conch Group? Lin Yi shook his head. Why wasn't it called Fire Wolf Group? But what it was called had nothing to do with Lin Yi. Lin Yi's purpose of coming here was to steal the document from the general manager's office. Lin Yi bought a newspaper on the street, then pretended to be a passerby. He walked to a bench near Conch Building, sat down, and read the newspaper like a leisurely tourist. No one noticed Lin Yi. Lin Yi kept staring at Conch Building from the corner of his eyes. But what surprised Lin Yi was that there were cars going in and out of Conch Building's courtyard, even in the early morning. This discovery made Lin Yi frown. After all, there weren't many people in a company in the morning, but Conch Group was different. There were already so many people going in and out in the morning. Would there be people at night? However, looking at the top of the building, many of the lights in the windows were not turned off. Obviously, they were turned on when it was dark. But now that it was dawn, there was no time to turn them off. Obviously, there were people working in the Conch Group at night. Lenny shook his head, picked up the newspaper, and walked to a restaurant on the other side of the street. He'd observed the place and found out that it was owned by a Scottish couple. He could tell from the clothes they were wearing and the way they talked to the customers. Therefore, Lenny chose this restaurant and walked in. There were not many people in the restaurant because it was too early now. Only 2 or 3 customers were buying things. These 3 or 2 people were even buying takeout. They did not choose to eat in the restaurant at all. After they left, Lenny bought some meals casually and sat down. Then, he pretended as if nothing had happened and chatted with the couple. "Auntie, you're not from here, right? You're Scottish, right?" Lenny asked in English. "Yeah, young man, how did you know? Are you here to travel?" The proprietress had nothing to do at the moment. When Lenny spoke, she started talking. "Yes, I've been there. Judging from your accent, you should be from there. The decorations of your store and your clothes are all from there." Lenny did not lie. He had been to Scotland when he was on a mission in the past. Chapter 3259. I came here to discuss business, so I took a look around on the way. Actually, it's not for a vacation, Lenny said. I see. However, there's really no place I can recommend you to go. At most, you can walk around nearby and see the local customs, the proprietress said with some regret. Right, what's the red building opposite for? Lenny asked casually. It seems like there are cars coming and going early in the morning. Oh, you're talking about the Conch Group, the proprietress said. That's the largest trading company in the town. It covers almost all the trading industries in the town. The raw materials for our small shops are all supplied by the Conch Group. It's also the largest import and export company in this area. So there are people delivering goods and discussing business all night long. I see. Lenny was enlightened, but he had some doubts in his heart. It seemed that this Conch Group should be a company without any shady interests on the surface, but it disguised itself quite well. It actually did trade for people's livelihood. However, Lenny didn't believe that the Conch Group didn't do any shady business. Perhaps these were just cover-ups. The closer it was to the headquarters, the more careful one had to be. Otherwise, it would be strange if a large group without any formal business did not arouse suspicion. This kind of import and export trade was suitable for money laundering. As long as the shipper was also one's own people, they could quote a lower purchase price. It saved a lot of trouble. However, this brought great trouble to Lin Yi's investigation of the building. There were people coming and going in the group, so Lenny couldn't sneak in. He could only disguise himself as a person discussing business and enter. However, it was difficult to come into contact with core office areas, like the general manager's office. In order to prevent these serious businessmen from entering those areas by mistake, there would definitely be many security guards patrolling. After all, these shady things couldn't be shown to these people. Therefore, if Lenny wanted to go to those key areas, he had to think of a way. Originally, Lenny thought that he could settle it in one day. Now he had to spend some effort. Why, young man, you want to do business with the Conch Group too? The lady boss saw the anticipation in Lin Yi's eyes, so she asked casually. Actually, the look in Lin Yi's eyes was fake. Lenny naturally couldn't show his true emotions on his face. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm also in the trade business, and that partner of mine is actually buying goods from Conch Group. If I buy from him, I'll be making less money, so. Lenny said, pretending to be embarrassed. Hee, I knew it. How could you not know about the Conch Group, lad? So you're here for connections. The lady boss thought nothing of it, thinking that she had exposed Lin Yi's secret. All she did was smile and say, actually, the Conch Group's starting point for doing business is very low. If you have the money, you can negotiate with them. Just like our restaurants, we don't actually need a lot of goods each. But if a few of us work together, we can be considered quite a sizable customer. We can still get the goods directly from the Conch Group. Oh, don't you need someone to introduce you? Lenny was slightly taken aback. There's no need. The lady boss waved her hand and said, lad, you can go directly. There's a reception at the entrance of their company. Tell them your purpose, and they will introduce you to the relevant person in charge. Is that so? Thank you very much. I'll go take a look now. Lin Yi smiled politely after listening to the lady boss's words. It's not a big deal. Go on, lad. The lady boss said indifferently. Lin Yi paid for the meal, left the small restaurant, and walked to the conch group. Sure enough, there was a reception downstairs of the conch group. Inside the reception, there were many businessmen asking about something. As soon as Lin Yi entered the door, someone greeted him. Boss, what business are you looking for? A waiter asked politely. Aquatic products. Lin Yi said. This was an idea that came to him after he saw a few trucks transporting seafood. It seemed that aquatic products were one of the main businesses of the conch group. Sir, how should I address you? The waiter nodded without any surprise and asked. My surname is Yi Ling, Lin Yi said. Oh, okay, Mr. Yi. The waiter didn't care much about Lin Yi's name. He just registered it. Mr. Yi, how much do you need every month? About 30 million euros, Lin Yi said. The price Lin Yi quoted was not particularly high, but it was definitely not low either. The waiter's eyes lit up. They were all employees at the bottom of the hierarchy. They didn't know the true details of the company. However, their manager had already informed these people. For customers who needed a large amount of goods, the price could be appropriately discounted. As long as the customer's monthly cash flow reached a certain amount, it would be fine. Of course, these waiters seemed to be making a small profit, but a quick turnover. In fact, the purpose of the company was very simple. It was to launder money. The more cash they took in, the better it was for them to operate. Sir, a customer of your level can meet the account manager directly. The waiter quickly wrote a list for Lin Yi and said to Lin Yi, you can now go to the account manager's office on the second floor and look for Manager Krieg. He will be your business manager in the future. Okay, thank you. Lin Yi nodded. He took the list and left the reception room. So far, everything was very smooth. Lin Yi successfully passed the first stage. Next, it was how to get the account manager to bring him to the general manager. However, it was a little difficult when he thought about it. For money laundering, the business manager level was probably the top level. At most, he could see the head of the business department. As for the general manager, it was almost impossible to see him. However, Lin Yi could only take one step at a time. Anyway, who didn't know how to brag? Lin Yi first drew a few big pies to see if the other party would take the bait. Lin Yi stood at the door of the business manager's office and pondered for a moment. He pushed the door and walked in. Immediately, a man with a crew cut greeted him. He smiled at Lin Yi and said, Sir, my name is Krieg. Are you looking for me? Chapter 3260. And the head of the Buffon family, old Buffon, who was now more than 80 years old, was a good friend of his master when he was young. He was also his master's disciple. Lin Yi could think of only him who could pull the flag. Sure enough, when Lin Yi brought up the banner of the Buffon family, Krieg's face suddenly changed. He looked at Lin Yi with incomparable respect. Mr. Yi, hello. Welcome to our company for business cooperation. You can rest assured that our price and quality are definitely the best in the industry. Of course, to tell you the truth, 30 million euros, I just casually quoted a number. If our business is to be launched, it is definitely more than this number. So, Mr. Krieg, would you like to introduce your department manager? Said Lin Yi. Of course, there is no problem. Even if Lin Yi didn't say it, Krieg planned to introduce Lin Yi to the department manager. The Buffon family was a big family. This level of order, he, a small account manager, couldn't handle it, and he didn't have the ability to sign it. He could only let the department manager do it. Thank you, Mr. Krieg. Lin Yi nodded. Under Krieg's introduction, Lin Yi smoothly met Red Conch's Minister of Business, Lute. This was a middle-aged man with a big belly, but with Lin Yi's intuition, this person should know some secrets of Red Conch. Hello, Mr. Yi, nice to meet you. Lute walked over and shook hands with Lin Yi in a very formal manner, then smiled slightly. Please come with me. Let's talk in detail. Okay. Lin Yi nodded. After the introduction, Krieg left Minister Lute's office. Minister Lute asked the secretary to pour tea for Lin Yi. However, when Lin Yi saw Lute's secretary, his eyes couldn't help but freeze slightly. The incredible shock flashed away. Although Lute didn't notice Lin Yi's shock, Lenny looked at his secretary for a long time. Lute smiled slightly. Mr. E is Asian, right? My secretary is also a very capable young man. Our general manager placed him by my side to gain experience. In fact, Lute said this to express his good impression of Asians. He also wanted to compliment Lenny. After all, Lenny was the god of fortune in Lute's eyes. The red conches needed to launder money. If they could get on the big ship of the Buffon family, then things would be much smoother in the future. Although it was only the supply of aquatic products to the hotel, if they cooperated more in the future, they could rely on the Conch Group to purchase the other facilities of the hotel. This way, the Conch Group could obtain a large amount of cash flow. Yes, Lenny smiled and said, this young man is not bad. Lenny was shocked by the appearance of this Asian young man. Surprisingly, it was not much different from Lin Yi's appearance after he wore the 1,000-thread mask. Of course, it was impossible to say that it was exactly the same, but it was somewhat similar. This discovery made Lin Yi very shocked and excited at the same time. Since entering the Conch Group, Lin Yi had been looking for a breakthrough. He wanted to quickly get close to the general manager's office, but he didn't know where to go. However, this young man in front of him allowed Lin Yi to find a shortcut to the general manager's office. In particular, Lute told him that this young man was sent by the general manager to gain experience by his side, which was enough to show that this young man knew the general manager. If Lin Yi pretended to be this person, he should be able to enter the general manager's office smoothly. Of course, for Lin Yi, who used to be an assassin, it was easy to disguise as someone who was similar to himself. However, at this moment Lin Yi was calm. He just nodded and got to the point. Minister Lute, since you know my origin, then I also know some things about your company. It can be said that our cooperation is a win-win situation. I can increase the cash flow in the Conch Group, but you must give me the most favorable price. Lute was slightly stunned, but thinking that Lin Yi was a member of the Buffon family, it was not surprising that he knew these secrets. The Buffon family was originally a family that sold arms. It was similar to the Red Conch drug trafficking group, but arms were legal in some places. However, Lute believed that the Buffon family would definitely secretly do some illegal arms business, so it was refreshing to talk to smart people. Lute immediately smiled and said, yes, since Mr. E is a sensible person, then I won't say much. You just have to tell me, how much can your hotel group take from me in a month? 50 million to 100 million. Lin Yi said. However, this is only the hotels in the nearby area. If your company has enough advantages, you can also purchase hotels in other distant areas from here. I understand. Minister Lute nodded and said, how about this, Mr. E? Can you wait here for a while? I will go and ask the general manager, and then I will try to give you the most favorable price list. Even if you lose some money and add some freight, it doesn't matter. Okay, then I will wait for your news. Lin Yi smiled. This was the result he hoped for the most. It seemed that Lute was an insider, and he did not intend to hide the purpose of his money laundering in front of Lin Yi. Secretary Lu, help me entertain Mr. E. Lute waved to his secretary, then got up and left the office. Secretary Lu? No need to be busy. I didn't sleep well last night. I can close my eyes and rest for a while. Lin Yi waved his hand, indicating that Secretary Lu did not need to prepare tea for him. Okay, then you rest, Mr. E. Secretary Lu said quickly. Lin Yi closed his eyes. It looked like he was closing his eyes to rest, but in fact, Lin Yi was not resting, but perceiving everything in the outside world through the perception in the space of the jade pendant. Now that Lin Yi was a heaven stage master, it was easy to lock Lute's figure. Lin Yi's divine sense perception had been on Lute. Lin Yi saw that after Lute left the office, he went into an elevator. The elevator was dedicated, not an ordinary passenger elevator. One must swipe a card to enter. This made Lin Yi frown slightly. Chapter 3261. However, if Secretary Lu knew the general manager, he should also have such a card, right? Thinking of this, Lin Yi felt slightly relieved. Lute took the elevator to the 29th floor of the Conch Corporation. He walked to an office at the end of the corridor, and knocked on the door. After a while, an inquiring voice came from the office. "Who is it? What's the matter?" "It's me, Root, Fanny's secretary." Lute was obviously very familiar with the general manager's secretary. As soon as he said his name, the office door opened. "Hello, Mr. Lute. The general manager is in the office. Please come in," Fanny said politely. This action made Lenny realize that he had found the right person. It seemed that Lute was really a core member of the Red Conches. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to enter the general manager's office so easily. But thinking about it, it was true. The business managers in the business department might not know. But it was impossible for Lute, the business minister, not to know about the group's money laundering. "Lute, what's the matter?" A deep male voice rang out. However, as soon as the voice rang out, his tone changed. "Fanny, look outside and see if anyone is following us." As he spoke, he revealed his peak late-stage heaven-rank strength, as if he was preparing to use his divine sense to sense if anyone was following them. Linyi's heart skipped a beat. He had not expected the Red Conch to have such a crouching tiger and hidden dragon. Linyi remembered that Brother Dafeng said that the Red Conch headquarters did not have any powerful experts. Now, it seemed that Brother Dafeng didn't know many core secrets. Linyi also subconsciously stopped probing with his divine sense and spiritual power. His divine sense and spiritual power had already been discovered by the other party. If he continued, it might cause trouble. Since the purpose had been achieved, and Linyi already knew the location of the general manager's office, then Linyi didn't need to investigate anymore. Linyi didn't care much about what Lute said to the general manager. After all, he didn't really want to do business, and those trade secrets were worthless to him. Of course, on the surface, Linyi was still sitting in Lute's office with his eyes closed. He didn't show any abnormalities. "Dear boss, there's no one outside." Although Fanny was a beautiful secretary, she was still an Earth-class expert. Of course, with her strength, it was impossible for her to sense Lin Yi's presence. Not to mention that Linyi had already withdrawn his divine sense. Fanny couldn't sense anything. "Maybe I'm being too sensitive." The general manager nodded. It was only a fleeting feeling before. But when he ran the mantra and carefully searched around the office, and even the elevator entrance, he found that there were no outsiders here. Everything was normal. "Lute, what's the matter?" "Boss, this is the case. The purchasing manager of the Buffon family hotel is here. He hopes to cooperate with us in the procurement of aquatic products." As Lute spoke, he told the general manager about Lin Yi's conditions. "In that case, this Yi Ling is here to ask for a favor?" The general manager smiled faintly after listening and said, "He gave us a large order, but he doesn't want us to make money. It's like this." From Mr. Yi's words, I can tell that he knows that we are in the drug business. These foreign trade are just for money laundering. That's why he came to us to cooperate. Lute nodded and said, "Hee, but it's not a big deal. With the strength of the Buffon family, it's easy for them to know our details. He wants to take advantage of us, and we want to launder money. It's a win-win situation." The general manager smiled and said, "We can agree to his conditions and lower it by 10% from our current lowest wholesale price. But the premise is that the monthly cash flow must be more than 50 million euros. "Okay, boss. I'll talk to him." Lute nodded. "Of course, you can ask. If he can reach a quota of more than 200 million euros, I can directly lower it by 20% for him," the general manager said. In fact, the supplier of the aquatic products was also a subsidiary of Red Conches. It was an aquatic product breeding company. This company didn't do it to make money. It couldn't even break even. It was only because of the secret financial support from Red Conches headquarters that they could live well. The only purpose of this company's existence was to help Red Conches launder money. After all, the breeding cost was really hard to say. It could be said that it was profitable even if it didn't make money. It was just that the people on the same side had the final say. "I understand." Lute didn't stay for long. After reporting the matter, he left the office and took the elevator back to his own office. "Fanny, check the background of this Yi Ling for me. Ask the Buffon family if there is such a person," the general manager said to Fanny after Lute left. "Oh, boss, do you suspect that there is a problem with him?" Fanny was shocked and asked quickly. I don't know. Maybe it's an intuition. I felt that there was a high-level cultivator investigating me. I don't know if it has anything to do with this Yi-Ling, said the general manager. Ah, okay, then I will contact the Buffon family in a while. Fanny nodded quickly. Tomorrow, we will make a deal with President He of the Overseas Cultivator Association. That old thing is an old fox. I'm afraid he will play some tricks. The general manager continued. Oh, boss, you mean that this Yi-Ling is from the Overseas Cultivator Association? Fanny was stunned. Yes, I'm afraid that they are here to scout. If they are honest with us, then it's nothing. I'm just afraid that they won't be honest, said the general manager worriedly. Boss, why is the Overseas Cultivator Association in the drug business? Aren't they cultivators? They didn't touch these things in the past. Fanny was a little confused. This was also what she wanted to ask before. They are cultivators, yes, but I don't know why. They said that they are in need of money. I can't find out the details. After all, the Overseas Cultivator Association is a supernatural organization. I don't dare to investigate too much and offend them. The general manager shook his head. After hearing that, Fanny clicked her tongue. She didn't dare to ask anymore. The red conches were usually very domineering, right? However, compared to the Overseas Cultivator Association, they were still a lot weaker. After all, the Overseas Cultivator Association was an organization where all cultivators gathered. The red conches were just a drug trafficking organization with cultivators in charge. Chapter 3262. Therefore, after a perfunctory and enthusiastic response, he said that he would go back and consult the board of directors of the Buffon Hotel Group to see what the maximum purchase quota could be before giving Lu Te the news. Lu Te didn't think much. He enthusiastically sent Lin Yi to the door and asked his secretary, Secretary Lu, to send Lin Yi out of the group. Of course, this was also convenient for Lin Yi. He could secretly take a few photos of Secretary Lu from multiple angles. Lin Yi planned to disguise himself after going back. After bidding farewell to Secretary Lu, Lin Yi quickly left the Conch group without stopping. What Buffon Family Hotel Group's purchasing manager? These were all fabricated. Although Lin Yi's master knew old Buffon, the head of the Buffon family, Lin Yi didn't want to trouble old Buffon at all. He didn't want to implicate him. After all, Red Conch was not a good person. Although the Buffon family was huge, it was not wise to make an enemy for no reason. Therefore, it was very likely that the other party would quickly investigate that there was no Yi-Ling in the Buffon Hotel Group. Of course, Lin Yi didn't care about this. The identity of Yi-Ling was also the last time he appeared in the Conch Group. Tomorrow, Lin Yi would come again. But he would definitely not use the identity of Yi-Ling Lin. He stopped a taxi on the side of the road and went to the town's largest cosmetics market. Lin Yi came here to purchase some necessary cosmetics supplies. Tomorrow, Lin Yi's identity would be Secretary Lu. Although Lin Yi hadn't been in contact with these things for a long time, this was Lin Yi's old profession after all. He was familiar with the purchase. When these things were purchased, Lin Yi returned directly to the bath center where he stayed. Of course, before returning, Lin Yi checked for a long time. After confirming that no one followed him, he entered the bath center. Lin Yi's guess was right. Secretary Fanny quickly got in touch with the Buffon family. Although the Buffon family had a large business, it was still very easy to confirm whether there was a hotel purchasing manager called Yi-Ling. After all, a purchasing manager was considered a middle-level leader. The reply that Secretary Fanny got was that there was no one named Yi-Ling in the hotel group. Even in the entire leadership team of the Buffon group, there was no such person. As expected, there was a problem. When Fanny reported this result to the general manager wasn't too surprised. He just frowned slightly and thought for a moment before saying to Fanny, "Fanny, go and contact the Overseas Cultivators Association. Tomorrow's transaction will be conducted in my general manager's office. Apart from President He Luodong, no one else is allowed to participate." "Ah, will they agree?" Fanny faltered slightly upon hearing this. "If you agree, then we'll trade. If you don't, then forget it," the general manager said. What happened today is a bit strange. I don't need to cause trouble for a business deal. Yes, boss. Fanny nodded and went to carry out the order. Perhaps the Overseas Cultivators Association was really short on cash. In order to complete this drug deal, they actually agreed to the general manager's request. After all, although the Overseas Cultivators Association was a large business, most of it was a stable real estate business. The annual income was basically fixed. If they wanted to take out some extra cash, they would have to do other business. The general manager calmed down a bit after hearing the reply from the Overseas Cultivators Association. After Lenny went upstairs, he didn't go straight to his room. Instead, he went to Ching-yi and Su Shirhan's room and knocked on the door. Footsteps came from inside the room, but no one spoke immediately. Lenny could feel that there was someone standing behind the door mirror. After a while, the door was opened, revealing Cheng-yi's surprised face. Lenny, is it done? Cheng-yi moved aside and let Lenny in. You're quite vigilant. Lenny was very satisfied with Cheng-yi's actions. Yeah, once something goes wrong, I'll run with Xiaohan. Cheng-yi said. And where's Xiaohan? Lenny asked. She's asleep. She actually waited for you the whole night. She couldn't take it anymore, so she went to sleep. Cheng-yi said. You also waited for the whole night? Lenny looked at Cheng-yi and asked. I'm a cultivator. It's fine. Cheng-yi was a bit embarrassed. Thank you. Lenny knew that Su Shirhan didn't sleep last night, so Cheng-yi must have stayed with her. Now that Su Shirhan was resting, Cheng-yi still had to be vigilant, afraid that someone would come looking for trouble. It's fine. Cheng-yi shook her head. I've hurt Xiaohan too much in the past. Now, I can only try my best to make up for it. Cheng-yi's face suddenly changed. What's wrong? Lenny quickly asked. Before, Feng Tianhu called me, but I pretended not to hear it. I didn't answer or reply. I was afraid that he would ask me about what happened here. I don't know how to answer. Cheng-yi was naturally referring to the fact that Lenny wasn't that powerful. Not to mention killing a peak late phase heaven class master. Lenny wasn't even a match for a normal peak late phase heaven class master. Lenny was slightly stunned and frowned. The news of him being chased by He Tianzu would probably spread back very quickly. Lenny didn't believe that the association had no relationship with the other ancient sections. From the fact that they knew about the automatic cauldron, they were more or less connected to the other ancient sections. So once the news of him being chased by them spread, then the godly ability that he had been bragging about before would be destroyed by itself. He would fall down from his pedestal. However, this was something that Lenny couldn't stop. Lenny couldn't control the mouth of others. He believed that once this news was spread, his enemies would become restless again, wouldn't they? When he returned, what awaited him? Lenny had a headache just thinking about it. Just tell him the truth. Lenny thought for a moment and said. Since he couldn't hide it anymore, he might as well let Cheng-yi tell him the truth. Otherwise, it would be the same as harming Cheng-yi. Cheng-yi was stunned. She didn't think that Lin-yi would let her tell him the truth. Chapter 3263. That's true. Cheng-yi sighed. What Lin-yi said was the truth. Even if she hid it, she couldn't hide it. Then I'll call him back now. Okay. Lin-yi nodded and said. After that, you should rest. I'll go prepare. I still have things to do tomorrow. Okay. Cheng-yi replied. After Lin-yi returned to his room, Cheng-yi called Feng Tianhu. Why didn't you pick up my call? Feng Tianhu asked. I was with Lin-yi and the others. It wasn't convenient for me to pick up. Cheng-yi said matter-of-factly. This was the most effective excuse. Oh. Feng Tianhu didn't suspect anything and continued. How's it going over there? Did you sign a contract with that entertainment company? No, something big happened here. Cheng-yi lowered her voice. Oh, what big thing? Feng Tianhu was stunned. It's like this. As she spoke, Cheng-yi told Feng Tianhu about how He Tianzu from the Overseas Cultivators Association came to harass Su Shirhan. Then Lin-yi provoked He Tianzu. Then, there was a conflict on the road, and Lin-yi ran away in fear. Feng Tianhu was shocked after listening to it. Yes, listening to Cheng-yi's story. It sounded like a fantasy story. Are you serious? Lenny couldn't even defeat a peak late-stage heaven-class master? How is that possible? It wasn't strange that Feng Tianhu didn't believe it. After all, the rumors about Lenny were too miraculous. This difference was beyond Feng Tianhu's imagination. It's true, Cheng Yi said with certainty. Why would I lie to you about such a big thing? Feng Tianhu thought about it and agreed. Cheng Yi wouldn't benefit from lying about this. Moreover, whether this news was true or not, the ancient age would soon send news about it. They would know once they heard it. Thus he didn't question it anymore and said, "Okay, I got it. You continue to lurk around Lin Yi and think of a way to ask Lin Yi why he couldn't even beat a peak late-stage heaven rank expert. Also, what's with the rumors of instant kills?" "Okay, I understand." Cheng Yi nodded and said, "I will try my best to get information from Lin Yi." "Okay, then I'll hang up first." Feng Tianhu hadn't recovered from the shock yet. He needed to digest the news and find out more. He didn't think that Cheng Yi would lie to him. After all, Cheng Yi had no reason to lie to him. However, this matter was too important. Feng Tianhu didn't believe it directly. He wanted to wait and see. After all, so many heaven stage experts had died. If it wasn't Lin Yi, then who did it? Cheng Yi hung up the phone and was about to leave the washroom. But when she turned around, she saw Su Shihan standing in front of the washroom with a face full of shock and anger. Cheng Yi couldn't help but be shocked. "Xiaohan, you're awake? Who did you call just now? You actually betrayed Lin Yi." Su Shihan glared at Cheng Yi angrily. She woke up in a daze and wanted to go to the washroom. When she walked to the door, she heard Cheng Yi talking to someone on the phone. At first, Su Shihan didn't care and wanted to walk in. But when she heard Lin Yi's name, she immediately stopped. Su Shihan jumped in fright. Cheng Yi was telling the person on the other side of the phone about Lin Yi's identity. Of course, Su Shihan was very rational and didn't stop Cheng Yi on the spot, because she didn't know who was on the other side of the phone. If she stopped her, would it alert the enemy? Would the person on the other side know that Cheng Yi was exposed? Would the other side immediately do something to Lin Yi? So, Su Shihan waited until Cheng Yi hung up the phone before she questioned angrily. "Xiaohan, listen to me, it's not what you think." Cheng Yi was a little panicked. She didn't think that Su Shihan would wake up at this moment and hear everything she said in front of the washroom. "It's not. I heard it with my own ears. How could it be fake?" Su Shihan said coldly. "Xiaohan, listen to my explanation." Cheng Yi didn't confess to Su Shihan. She had already made up her mind. But as time passed, Cheng Yi also betrayed Feng Tianhu. She didn't want to hurt the relationship between her and Su Shihan, so she didn't say anything. "How do you explain?" Su Shihan asked. "Actually, it's like this. I have to start from that time at the orphanage." Cheng Yi knew that she couldn't hide it from Su Shihan today, so she decided to tell the truth. She started from the orphanage, helping Su Shihan block an attack from the Great Elder of the Black Horse Society. When she talked about that time when Cheng Yi stood up to protect her, Su Shihan's angry expression immediately calmed down. Yes, Cheng Yi risked her life to protect her. That couldn't be faked. Su Shihan had always been very grateful to Cheng Yi. So the Great Elder of the Black Horse Gang came to assassinate her mother at the orphanage. Cheng Yi knew about it. And the previous few assassinations, Cheng Yi also knew about it. It's just that Cheng Yi didn't kill her. Listening to Cheng Yi's story, Su Shihan's heart also softened. Cheng Yi was also a girl with a hard life. And what made Su Shihan helpless was that Cheng Yi's boss was actually her own uncle. This kind of internal strife in the family made Su Shihan have no temper, only a deep helplessness. So Lin Yi already knew about this. "And it was Lin Yi who told you to tell Feng Tianhu?" Su Shihan asked. She didn't call Feng Tianhu third uncle, because she felt that Feng Tianhu didn't deserve to be her third uncle. Yes, Lin Yi said that this matter couldn't be hidden. Sooner or later people would find out. So there's no need to hide it anymore. Cheng Yi nodded and said, "Then I've wronged you." Su Shihan sighed and said, To be honest, I really didn't want to lose our friendship. Luckily you didn't disappoint me." "Actually, I've done a lot of things to let you down, Xiaohan. I'm already very satisfied that you can forgive me. I don't dare to hope that we can be like sisters again," Cheng Yi said carefully. Chapter 3264. Lenny went back to rest. He still has other things to do tomorrow. Let's not disturb him, okay? Cheng Yi paused and said, But Xiao Han, if you don't believe me, you can ask Lenny. There's no need for that. I believe you. Su Shirhan waved her hand and said, I'm just worried about Lenny. I don't know if the people from the Overseas Cultivators Association can find this place. Compared to the people from the association, I'm more worried about those ancient sections. Cheng Yi smiled bitterly. The association is overseas after all. But those ancient sects, if Lenny goes back, will they come looking for trouble with Lenny? I don't know. But it's useless for us to worry. Lenny should have a plan, right? Su Shirhan trusted Lenny more. She believed that Lenny should have a plan. That's right. It's useless for us to worry. Cheng Yi smiled bitterly and shook her head. After Lenny returned to his room, he put on the 1,000 silk mask. Then, he compared Secretary Lu's photo in his phone and began to put on makeup. Secretary Lu and Lin, he looked very similar when he wore the 1,000 silk mask. As long as he put on some disguise, even Lu Te himself wouldn't be able to recognize him. Especially people with Asian faces. In the eyes of the Westerners, they were all the same. After Lin Yi disguised himself, it was basically foolproof. As for Secretary Lu's clothes, Lin Yi didn't get it. This was a custom-made outfit from Conch Group. Lin Yi didn't have the ability to get it. So Lin Yi planned to take it off Secretary Lu tomorrow. After doing all this, Lin Yi took out his phone. He hesitated for a moment and called Gu Xian. Boss, why did you call me? Gu Xian picked up the phone and was a little excited. Actually, the ancient era was filled with rumors of Lin Yi's awe-inspiring might. As Lin Yi's underling, Gu Xian was also very proud. If his boss was awesome, wouldn't his underling also be proud? Although others didn't know that he was Lin Yi's little brother, he was very happy. It's like this, Gu Xian. In the past 2 days, have there been any rumors about me in the ancient era? Lin Yi asked after some thought. Rumors about you, boss? Gu Xian was slightly taken aback. She pondered for a moment and said, No. If you want to talk about rumors, it's the one about you killing the Supreme Elder of the Black Horse Association. Apart from that, there's nothing else. Oh, is that so? Then help me keep an eye out. If there are any other rumors, inform me immediately. Lin Yi instructed. Now it seemed that the matter between him and the Overseas Cultivators Association had not spread back to the ancient era. Once it spread, he would be in trouble when he returned. He believed that even if the Heavenly Elixir sect did not deal with him, the Everyday sect and the Dongfang family would definitely deal with him. After all, these two sects had the greatest enmity with him and were almost irreconcilable. Okay, I got it, Gu Xian replied. In fact, at the same time, Kong Mingming had already found some information about Lin Yi with the help of Little Yi. It was really not easy to hide things in the ancient era from the Five Elements sect. From all kinds of clues, Patriarch Xianchen had roughly deduced a conclusion. After listening to Little Yi and Kong Mingming's reports, Patriarch Xianchen frowned. The conclusion he deduced was a little shocking, but it was reasonable. So, whether it was the Dongfang family, the Everyday sect, or the Black Horse Society, when the incident happened, the people from the blood-clad underworld sect were nearby, right? Yes, according to the whereabouts of the blood-clad underworld sect's patriarchs, we can draw this conclusion. Little Yi nodded. After all, if the blood-clad underworld sect's patriarchs went somewhere at the same time, as long as the place was not too secret, they could investigate it. In that case, it should be Lin Yi who hired the blood-clad underworld sect to kill the people from the Dongfang family, the Everyday sect, and the Black Horse Society? Speaking up to this point, Patriarch Xianchen had some doubts. This deduction was reasonable. The blood-clad underworld sect's patriarchs were at the place where the rumor happened, and the blood-clad underworld sect's profession was to kill people for others. As long as Lin Yi paid enough, it was not impossible for the blood-clad underworld sect's patriarchs to take action. However, the only thing that puzzled Patriarch Xianchen was that although the blood-clothed underworld sect was an anomaly among the ancient sects, it was still a member of the ancient sections. It wasn't wrong for them to take someone's money to eliminate a calamity. However, wouldn't killing so many top experts of the ancient sects incite public anger? In the past, although the blood-clad underworld sect had accepted business, they would not accept such tasks when it involved the leaders of the sect. After all, if one killed an ordinary disciple, the sect could let it go. Every injustice had its perpetrator, and every debt had its debtor. They would only settle accounts with the person who hired them. However, if one killed an elder of the sect, wouldn't that be a blood feud? Patriarch Xianchen did not believe that the blood-clad underworld sect would be so foolish. Wasn't this too arrogant? Did they want to become the public enemy of the ancient sects? Even if the blood-clad underworld sect had the backing of the Five Elements sect, they wouldn't dare to do this, right? Even Patriarch Xianchen himself did not dare to easily kill the pure-in heavenly master of the everyday and everyday sect. This was simply forming a blood feud. However, Patriarch Xianchen felt that even if one of the blood-clad underworld sect's patriarchs went crazy, it was impossible for all three of them to go crazy together, right? Did these three want to become enemies with the entire ancient sects? Or was there someone even more powerful backing them up from behind? Patriarch Xianchen was really puzzled. There is this possibility. Otherwise, Lin had a grudge with the blood-clad underworld sect in the past. Kong Mingming nodded and said, "Before this, Zhao Qibing hired the blood-clad underworld sect to kill Lin Yi." Patriarch Xianchen nodded. He did not believe that Lin Yi and the blood-clad underworld sect were in cahoots. There was obviously a huge conflict between the two. But what benefits did Lin Yi offer to make the blood-clad underworld sect take action? Chapter 3265. After pondering for a while, Patriarch Xianchen raised his head and asked, "Has the pure young heavenly lord of the everyday and everyday sect succeeded in breaking through to the great perfection realm?" "I'm not sure either. I heard that after Heavenly Venerate Pure Yin died, Heavenly Venerate Pure Yang has been working hard to break through to the perfected stage, but there's no news." Little One shook his head, indicating that he wasn't too sure. "Go and investigate before deciding if this news should be released," said Patriarch Black Earth. "Yes, I'll go and find out," Little One quickly replied. Ancestor Xianchen nodded. Now, the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect had two experts at the peak of the late stage of Heaven Realm. This was an advantage that other ancient sects couldn't compare to. The reason why the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect could become an anomaly was also because of their powerful strength. Although the Five Elements sect could suppress him, Ancestor Xianchen and Ancestor Xianzhen were both peak late heaven stage great perfection experts. And Ancestor Xianchen was even more powerful than ordinary peak late heaven stage great perfection experts. But the Five Elements sect really couldn't do anything about this. With Boss Bai around, Patriarch Xianchen had to consider Boss Bai when he did things. Since they had agreed, Patriarch Xianchen would not interfere with anything related to Lin Yi openly. If he wanted to do something, he could only do it secretly. Therefore, the blood-clothed underworld sect could only be dealt with by the everyday and everyday sect, the Dongfang clan, and Dark Horse Society. However, they needed the strength to make a move. In the everyday and everyday sect, there was only one confirmed peak late heaven stage great perfection expert, and that was Ancestor Wild Bull. As for Pure Young Empyrean, he was currently trying to break through peak late heaven stage great perfection. Whether or not he succeeded was still unknown. The Dongfang family, at present, has no great master, and the most potential to hit the great perfection Dongfang Yinxing has died, and Dongfang Badeo's age is too old, has passed the peak of life. It wasn't an easy task to ascend to the great circle of perfection. Finally, there was the Black Horse Gang. The Black Horse Gang still had a supreme elder in seclusion, as well as the Black Horse Gang's leader, who had just advanced to the peak of the Heaven Realm. These two were at the peak of the Heaven Realm. However, if they wanted to kill the three ancestors of the blood-clad underworld sect with an absolute advantage, they would need at least 3 great perfection realm experts to work together. Even 3 might not be enough to kill them, but 4 would be the safest. Therefore, whether Heavenly Venerable Pure Yang could successfully ascend to the great perfection stage depended on this. It was of the utmost importance. Patriarch Black Earth was used to planning before taking action. If he did not have absolute confidence that he could defeat the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect, he would rather not release the news for the time being. After all, as long as the Netherworld sect didn't fall, it would be difficult to touch Lin Yi. After putting on makeup, Lin Yi looked at himself in the mirror. He looked exactly like Secretary Lu in the phone. After doing all this, Lin Yi walked out of the bath center. Of course, the bathing center was crowded. No one would notice whether Lin Yi was a customer of the bathhouse or not. On the side of the road, Lin Yi hailed a taxi and headed straight for the Red Conch Group. Soon he arrived at the Conch Group. After Lin Yi paid the fare, he swaggered into the Conch Group. His current appearance was that of Secretary Lu. He believed that all the employees in the Conch Group recognized him. True enough. As soon as Lin Yi entered the company, someone greeted Lin Yi. "Secretary Lu, why are you out? Weren't you in Mr. Lu's office just now?" A staff member of the Conch Group's business department greeted Secretary Lu. Hee. Lin Yi smiled. He imitated Secretary Lu's voice and said, "I went out to do something." "Oh," the staff member just asked casually, and did not suspect anything at all. He turned around and went to do his own thing. Lin Yi took the elevator and went to the floor where Lu's office was located. What Lin Yi had to do now was to find Secretary Lu as soon as possible. He wanted to knock Secretary Lu out, and then wear Secretary Lu's clothes to find the general manager of the Conch Group. After coming out of the elevator, Lin Yi did not wander around. Instead, he went straight to the men's room. This floor was not like the one below. If Secretary Lu and Lin Yi appeared at the same time, it was hard to guarantee that they would not be discovered. Therefore, Lin Yi planned to wait in the bathroom. He didn't believe that Secretary Lu would always not come to the bathroom. As long as Secretary Lu came to the bathroom, then Lin Yi's opportunity would come. In the bathroom, Lin Yi began to wait for a long time. Fortunately, there were many cubicles in the toilet here. One of them was locked for a long time, so no one would be suspicious. Patience was easy for Lin Yi. He waited for more than 3 hours, and Secretary Lu still did not appear. However, Lin Yi was not in a hurry. Finally, after about 3.5 hours, Secretary Lu walked into the bathroom. Secretary Lu was peeing in the urinal. Lin Yi was not in a hurry. When Secretary Lu finished peeing and was about to put on his belt, Lin Yi quietly appeared behind Secretary Lu. Secretary Lu directly took the Fushi 9 needles from the jade pendant space into his hand. He pricked Secretary Lu's body a few times, and Secretary Lu directly fainted on the ground. After being pricked by Lin Yi, Secretary Lu wouldn't wake up for a while. Moreover, the most important thing was that after he woke up, he would have temporary amnesia. He wouldn't remember what happened before. He would have a blank memory. This was also the effect that Lin Yi wanted to confuse the people of the Red Conch. After dragging Secretary Lu into the toilet cubicle, Lin Yi quickly took off his clothes, pants and watch, and put them on himself. Then, he locked the door of the cubicle and jumped out from the top of the cubicle. At this moment, Lin Yi had become Secretary Lu. Lin Yi came out of the bathroom. He didn't stay for long. He took the elevator directly and went to the floor where the general manager's office was. With Secretary Lu's elevator card in his pocket, Lin Yi easily passed the verification. The elevator rose slowly. After stopping on the 29th floor, the elevator door opened. Lin Yi walked out of the elevator. At this moment, there was another person in the corridor. This person was actually the general manager's secretary, Fanny. Isn't this Mr. Lu? Why are you here? Are you looking for the boss? Fanny looked strangely at Lin Yi, who came out of the elevator. That's right, Miss Fanny. Where are you going? Lin Yi already knew Fanny's name from her chess card. When he probed with his perception yesterday, he seemed to have heard this name, but he didn't know the specific spelling. Chapter 3266. Oh, I see. Lin Yi nodded and said, Great, then I'll go with you to get the water. Lin Yi didn't expect the CEO's office to have no hot water in the huge Conch Group. He had to go to the hot water supply on every floor to get hot water. However, Lin Yi wasn't very clear about the internal management of the Conch Group. Anyway, it was easier for Lin Yi to get close to the CEO's office. Okay. Fanny agreed readily. I can't carry it all by myself. You can help me carry it in. I'm not an outsider anyway. Of course, no problem. Lenny nodded. Not an outsider. Lenny really didn't know why he wasn't an outsider. However, Lenny knew that Secretary Lu was arranged by the CEO to train beside Lu Tay. Perhaps this Secretary Lu was a relative of the CEO's family? Lenny didn't guess wrong. Secretary Lu was the younger brother of one of the CEO's concubines. That was why he took care of him. Of course, this wasn't something that Lenny knew. Together with Fanny, they went to the hot water supply. Lenny carried the brewed coffee and walked to the CEO's office with Fanny. Fanny knew Secretary Lu's identity. She was also the CEO's mistress. This kind of nepotism was common in the Conch group. She didn't treat Secretary Lu as an outsider at all. After knocking on the door, Fanny pushed it open and entered. Lenny also walked in with the coffee. The CEO was slightly taken aback when he saw someone following behind Fanny. However, when he saw that it was Secretary Lu, he didn't say anything. After all, he was one of them and knew the secrets of the group. Lenny placed the coffee in front of the CEO and the president of the Overseas Cultivators Association, He Luonan. Yes, Lenny was very shocked at this moment. He didn't expect He Luonan to appear here. Could it be that He Luonan knew that he was already in Ruilida town and wanted to find him through the Red Conch? Thinking of this possibility, Ling Yi's heart was slightly shocked, but he didn't show it on his face. After all, his current identity was Secretary Lu, and it had nothing to do with Lin Yi. President He, the goods are ready. I wonder if you've prepared the money. The general manager didn't seem to avoid Lin Yi in the slightest and spoke directly. Of course. He Luan pointed at a suitcase at his feet and nodded. Lin Yi listened to the conversation between these two people, and his heart suddenly relaxed. It turned out that these two people were here to trade drugs. It had nothing to do with me. However, why did President He want to trade drugs? Why did the Overseas Cultivators Association suddenly become involved in such a business? Of course, what Lin Yi did not know was that President He wanted to purchase a batch of first-grade automatic medicinal cauldrons. But when he inquired about the price with Patriarch Black Earth, he was given a fright. Why is this thing so expensive? The internal price wasn't cheap either. President He wanted to purchase dozens of medicinal cauldrons, which was more than 10 billion yuan. Where did President He find such a large budget? Without money, he could only think of other ways to earn money. The previous businesses of the Overseas Cultivators Association all had fixed income. It was impossible to say that one of the businesses could earn more money if he wanted to. That was impossible. Therefore, President He and a few of the higher-ups of the Overseas Cultivators Association discussed and decided to sell drugs. This was the fastest way to earn money. Moreover, they had their own hotels and bars. They didn't do this business in the past because the Overseas Cultivators Association didn't want to get involved in the underworld. With a stable income, there was no need to worry about these things. However, it was different now. If they didn't earn money, they wouldn't have the money to buy automatic medicinal cauldrons. Therefore, President He personally visited the Conch group to conduct the drug trade. Of course, President He was an expert at the peak of the late stage of Heaven stage. That was why he dared to go alone. If it was someone else, they really wouldn't dare to come here. However, it was also because the Overseas Cultivators Association was powerful, and this was the first time they were doing business with the Conch group, that the general manager was so careful. He was afraid that the other party would do something bad, so he decided to conduct the transaction at the headquarters of the Conch group. All right, since we all understand, then there's no need to say anything more. The general manager said. President He, shall we do the transaction now? Okay, sure. Helida nodded and said. But first, you should let me see the goods, right? Of course, no problem. The general manager nodded. When buying something, one had to look at the goods. This was the rule that almost all transactions followed. It wasn't strange to have the goods first and the payment later. As he said that, the general manager waved to Fanny and said, Fanny, go and take the goods out. Yes, boss. Fanny nodded and turned to go inside the office. I'll help you. Lenny seized the opportunity and said quickly. This was because Lenny had already seen that there was no safe in the outer room of the general manager's office. Obviously, no one would put a safe for storing documents in the outer room. They would be placed in a place in the office where outsiders couldn't reach. Fanny didn't express any objections and let Lin follow her into the inner room. Even the general manager didn't feel that there was anything wrong with this. Secretary Lu's sister was his concubine and had already given birth to a son. Therefore, his trust in Secretary Lu was no less than Fanny's. Moreover, Secretary Lu was a warm-hearted and diligent young man. Otherwise, even if he was his brother-in-law, the general manager might not have taken a liking to him. He entrusted him with important tasks and arranged for him to learn by Lu's side. This was also in preparation for him to take over a higher position in the future. Lin and Fanny came to the inner room of the office together. At a glance, Lin saw the safe near the office desk. Unfortunately, this safe was a safe with a password and fingerprint verification. Both were indispensable. Of course, Lin could break it by force if he wanted to, but he definitely couldn't now. Not to mention that Fanny was here. Even if she wasn't, he didn't have the time. What should I do? How can I get the yellow document in the safe? If only I could retrieve things from the air. Just thinking about it, I could get the yellow document in the safe. How great would that be? Lin suddenly had an idea. My jade pendant. I wonder if it can do that. Usually, when Lin stored things in the space of the jade pendant, he used his mind. For example, when Lin saw an item in front of him, he only needed to think about it and store it in the space of the jade pendant. Then, the item would smoothly enter the space of the jade pendant without Lin having to do anything. Chapter 3267. Thinking of this, Lin quietly walked to the side of the safe, while Fanny was opening the general manager's cabinet. Then he used his mind to move the yellow folder inside the safe into the space of the jade pendant. Suddenly, 2 yellow folders appeared out of nowhere in the space of the jade pendant. This discovery surprised and delighted Lin. His hypothesis was correct. As long as he could think of something that could fit in the space of the jade pendant, he could put it in the space of the jade pendant, even if it was separated by a safe. This was because Jiao Lao had said before that the space of the jade pendant seemed to be some kind of fourth-dimensional space. It was not restricted by the current third-dimensional space. The rules of the two were different, so Lin could easily steal the folders. Of course, Big Brother Feng had said before that there was only 1 yellow folder. Lin had obtained 2, so one of them must be something else, and not the address of the drug refining base. However, it didn't matter. He could take it back and look at it. Now Lin didn't dare to take it out and look at it carelessly. After all, Fanny was right beside him. After doing all this, Lin quietly went to Fanny's side. At this time, Fanny successfully took out a small black box. Obviously, it was filled with drugs. It's here. It's so heavy. Carry it, Fanny said to Secretary Lu. Lin nodded. He happily carried the box of drugs in his hand and walked out of the office with Fanny. Boss, it's here, Fanny said to the general manager and pointed at Lin. Lin put the box on the coffee table as he was told. He opened the box and showed the contents to President He. President He, please inspect the goods. The general manager nodded and said to President He, I believe that you are an experienced person. Before you came, you must have done your homework on the purity of the drugs. The goods I prepared for you are of the highest purity. After all, you and I are both leaders of organizations. I wouldn't lie to you for a single transaction. He Luodan had done a lot of research on drugs. He did a preliminary inspection on the drugs in Lin Yi's box. It was just as the general manager said. The box was filled with high purity. He smiled in satisfaction. President He, if that's the case, then we'll do the transaction. With that, He Luodan took the box from the floor and put it on the coffee table to show it to the general manager. However, this action of He Luodan made Lin Yi's heart skip a beat. This big box was filled with euros. From the size of the box, he could tell that there were at least a few 100 million in it. If he could get it, it would be able to solve the financial crisis of Yu Xiaoke's orphanage. With that thought, Lin quietly used his will and put the euros in the box into the jade space. The jade space wasn't big, but it was more than enough to put in the box of euros. In an instant the box became empty. All the euros went into Lin Yi's jade space. At this time, He Luodan entered the password on the box. With a bang the box opened. However, the box was opened. Other than Lin Yi, everyone was shocked. The box was empty. Of course, the most shocked person was He Luodan himself. His face turned dark, and his breathing became rapid. After a while he said angrily, "President, what is the meaning of this?" "President I was going to ask you. You brought an empty box to trade, and you're asking me why?" The general manager's face darkened as well. The box was empty. The general manager thought that President he was trying to rob him? Why would I bring an empty box? Why would I bring an empty box to trade? He Luodan said as he lifted the box with his hand. He said coldly, "This box didn't have any money in it. I carried it all the way here. And now that it's empty, do you think I wouldn't feel anything?" "President from what you're saying, you're not thinking that I took the money from the box, are you?" The general manager asked coldly. "Humph." He Luodan humphed. He didn't say it out loud, but the meaning was clear. "President I have to remind you that this box has been under your feet since we came in. I didn't even touch it. Besides, do you think I can take the money without opening the box? What do you think I am? A magician? I don't think even a heavenly Dao master has the ability to teleport, right? This isn't something a practitioner can do. If it's not technology, then it must be some kind of supernatural ability. But do you think there's this kind of technology or supernatural ability? If I had this kind of ability, I would go to the bank and move gold bricks. I wouldn't have to sell drugs to earn money." The general manager's face regained its calmness. He explained indifferently, "Of course, this doesn't eliminate the possibility that President he is trying to frame me." "You, President," he was infuriated by the general manager's words. But he wasn't a stupid person. Indeed, the box had been at his feet since he came in. It didn't leave his body at all. Moreover, he was a peak late-stage heaven stage master. If someone opened the box and stole the money under his nose, it was impossible for him not to notice it. Moreover, the money in the box wasn't a small amount. Even if he wanted to move it, it would take some time. Who could steal it all at once? However, it was impossible to say that the box was swapped because the box's password was set by him. Moreover, there were some marks of the Overseas Cultivator Association on the box. It was impossible for the Red Conch to create such a box in such a short time. Moreover, who could have swapped the box under his nose? Therefore, President he was a little puzzled at this moment. Did he see a ghost? Did he not bring the money here at all? He was a little uncertain. After all, this was very strange. If the money disappeared into thin air, then it would be really strange. "Alright, you have a computer here, right? I'll transfer the money to you." Hilda took a deep breath. Although he was very puzzled, he couldn't stop the transaction. He didn't have cash, so he could only use the transfer method. Although if he really lost the money, he would suffer a huge loss. If he didn't continue the transaction, then he would lose everything. Chapter 3268. "Yes, boss." Fanny nodded, and turned to go into the office to get the laptop. Lin Yi, on the other hand, followed Fanny like it was a matter of fact. He looked like he was eager to help. Fanny and the CEO didn't suspect Lin Yi in the slightest, since he'd been the one who'd helped them with the drugs. Fanny was obviously used to helping the general manager with this task. She turned on her laptop and opened the online banking page with ease. Then, she entered the Conch Group's company account number. Next, it was time for He Luodan to enter the account number and password for the payer. "I'll help you." Lin Yi appeared just as Fanny was about to pick up the laptop, gesturing for Fanny to hold it for him. Fanny didn't think much of it and nodded. She let Lin Yi take the laptop, and Lin Yi and Fanny walked out together. Lin Yi, however, deliberately lagged behind Fanny by half a step. He'd been staring at the laptop since the beginning, and while Fanny wasn't paying attention, Lin Yi quickly typed on the keyboard. Lin Yi's hand speed was quite fast, or else he wouldn't have been able to steal the money from the scammers in Xinyan when he first came to Songshan. So, Lenny had already finished his work by the time he stepped out of the office. Lenny respectfully placed the laptop in front of Luodan after walking out of the office. Chairman please enter your account number and password. The laptop screen was facing Luodan's side, and since he had to enter the password, neither the CEO nor Fanny could look at the laptop screen. Lenny, on the other hand, tried to avoid arousing suspicion. The coffee's cold, I'll go get some hot water. With that, Lenny pushed the door open and walked out of the CEO's office. Chairman please inspect the goods. The CEO nodded. I believe you're an experienced man, and you've done your homework on the purity of the drugs before you came. I'll prepare it for you. Of course, Lenny didn't leave the office to get some hot water. Lenny wanted to run away. He'd already gotten what he wanted, and if he stayed here, wouldn't that be asking for trouble? And so, Lenny entered the elevator, but he didn't go down to the lowest floor. Instead, he went to the floor where the real Secretary Lu had fainted. He quickly walked into the bathroom and switched his clothes with Secretary Lu's, then massaged the back of Secretary Lu's neck a few times. Secretary Lu would wake up naturally in about 10 minutes. After doing all that, he quickly got into the elevator again and left Conch Group. He flagged down a rental car and left the place quickly. Upstairs in the CEO's office. Okay, CEO, I've transferred the money successfully. 300 million euros, that's the price we agreed on before. Luan pressed the confirm button on the computer, entered the SMS verification code on his phone, and completed the transaction. And there's a notification on my phone. I just need to wait. The CEO saw that he transferred the money so quickly, and he nodded with satisfaction. He also relaxed his vigilance. It seemed that the Overseas Cultivator Association was still very sincere in the transaction. The euros in the box were gone. It might be an accident. However, after waiting for about 5 minutes, the CEO still hadn't received the notification of the money being transferred. He couldn't help but frown slightly. His account was set up in one of the most advanced and efficient banks in the world. Generally, the transfer would be received in real time. It was impossible for the money to not be transferred in 5 minutes. President what bank are you from? Why hasn't the money been transferred in 5 minutes? The CEO couldn't help but ask. It's XX Bank. Don't we, who do gang business, usually set up accounts in XX Bank? It's safer and more efficient. Luan was slightly surprised. You haven't received it yet? That's impossible. It's the same bank as me. It shouldn't be so slow. The CEO also frowned, feeling that this matter was a bit strange. My phone has received a notification that the transfer was successful. If you want, can you call and check? Luan pondered for a moment and asked. All right. The CEO nodded, took out his phone, and dialed the bank's inquiry number. Of course, even Fanny didn't know the password for his account. She only knew the account number. After waiting for a moment, the CEO couldn't help but frown slightly. Then he hung up the phone and said to Luan, President I didn't receive your money. Impossible. Look at the computer. It clearly showed that the transfer was successful. Luan was anxious, pointing at the computer screen and said, Let me see. The CEO also felt a bit strange. Could it be that there was a problem with the bank system? He turned his head and looked at the computer screen that Luan moved over. It showed that the transfer was successful. 300 million euros has been transferred to the account. Seeing this, the CEO couldn't help but be surprised, then said, President did you make a mistake? My account name is Conch Group Trading Company Limited, not Songshan Orphanage. What Songshan Orphanage? Luan was also surprised, but when he saw the account name he transferred to, his face suddenly showed a surprised and angry expression. CEO, are you messing with me? This is the account name that your secretary entered for me. I don't fucking know anything about Songshan Orphanage. Fanny, what's going on? The CEO turned his head and looked at Fanny with some doubt. Boss, this is impossible. I don't know anything about any orphanage. I personally entered your account information. There's no mistake. Fanny said firmly. The CEO nodded. In his opinion, Fanny wouldn't make such a low-level mistake. Moreover, Songshan Orphanage had nothing to do with him. Even if there was a mistake, it wouldn't be so ridiculous. Chapter 3269. Fuck you. You're slandering me. He Luonan was so angry that his face turned red. He slammed the computer against the wall and smashed it into pieces. He jumped up and revealed his peak late-stage heaven stage strength. In He Luonan's eyes, this was the CEO's plan. He and Fanny were just acting. Previously, he had felt that something was wrong. His suitcase of euros had disappeared for no reason. This time, the money had been transferred to some orphanage. Other than He Luonan himself, everyone here was the CEO's man. It was no wonder he was suspicious. He Luodong, are you playing games with me? Do you want to take my drugs without spending a single cent? The general manager also stood up, revealing his peak late-stage heaven ranks power. In the CEO's eyes, He Luonan was playing tricks. First, he brought an empty suitcase to fish in troubled waters. When he saw that he couldn't fool him, he transferred the money to an orphanage account. Was he trying to fool them? Who's playing tricks? Who knows? CEO, if you give me the suitcase of drugs now, I can pretend that nothing happened. I'll admit that I'm unlucky to have lost the euros in the suitcase. He Luonan snorted. Don't tell me that the orphanage isn't your account. He Luonan, how can you say something like that? I think you're the one who wants to reap without sowing. Get lost now and I won't pursue this. Our conch group doesn't welcome insincere partners like you. The CEO said angrily. You're courting death. He Luonan had never been this angry before. He couldn't take it anymore. He pulled out a whip from his waist. This was his heaven stage divine weapon. He lashed it at the CEO. This soft whip was very similar to the heaven rank sharp weapon that Little One used. However, Little One's whip was a genuine heaven rank sharp weapon. As for He Luolua's whip, it was based on his impression of the Five Elements sect when he was young. As for Little Yi's heaven stage divine weapon, it was still in Lin Yi's hands. You're the one courting death, right? How dare you make a move in Conch Group's headquarters? The CEO was furious. He pulled out 2 hammers from both sides of his legs and threw them at He Luonan. This was his heaven stage divine weapon. Boom, boom, boom. A deafening sound echoed from the general manager's office as 2 peak late-stage heaven rank experts fought. At this time, the real secretary Lu, who was lying in the toilet cubicle, slowly woke up. However, he didn't know what happened to him. He only remembered that he came to the toilet, but he didn't know what happened after that. Did he faint in the toilet? Secretary Lu quickly checked his body. He didn't find anything unusual. There were no injuries on his body, and he didn't lose anything. He could only think that he was too tired these past few days and lacked sleep, so he fainted in the bathroom. In fact, he was really tired these few days, so he didn't think too much about it. At that moment, Lin Yi had already changed into 2 taxis and returned to the spa center. Lin Yi's goal had been achieved. Naturally, Lin Yi didn't know that the 2 peak heaven rank powerhouses were already fighting. He would be speechless if he knew. He didn't expect that the account that Lin Yi casually changed was tricked by He Luonan. Of course, if He Luonan found out before the transfer, then the result would be different. At that time, the CEO definitely wouldn't think that it was He Luonan or Fanny who changed it. Then it could only be Secretary Lu. Therefore, Lin Yi was afraid that something might go wrong. Before returning to the spa center, he returned to his old appearance and entered the spa center. Then, he quickly knocked on Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi's door and ran away with them. The car was stolen by Lin Yi before. It belonged to a local biker gang. It was probably a stolen car, so after it was lost, the biker gang didn't look for it and asked Lin Yi to stop it not far from the spa center. Lin Yi didn't explain and directly brought Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi to the nearest airport. At noon, a large passenger plane took off and flew to the nearest city. In the first-class cabin, Lin Yi booked 4 seats. Lin Yi sat in a row, Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi sat in another row, and the 2 seats were facing each other. It was convenient for the 3 to chat. Lin Yi, what happened? Cheng Yi whispered. Nothing, it's all settled. Lin Yi obviously didn't want to tell Cheng Yi and Su Shirhan about what happened in Ruele de town. He didn't want them to worry. And so, Changyi didn't ask anymore and started chatting with Su Shirhan. When the plane landed in the nearest city to Island X, they got off the plane. Lin Yi, Su Shirhan, and Changyi got on the plane that Yang Qiqi arranged for them to transfer to Island X. They breathed a sigh of relief. Up until now, they were completely safe. But Lin Yi was a little surprised. Such a big thing happened to the Conch group. Why didn't they send a large-scale search for him? As long as he pulled up the previous surveillance footage, he could determine that the previous Yi Ling was a suspicious character. Then, after comparing him with He Luodong, his identity was on the verge of being revealed. With the capabilities of the Red Conches and the Overseas Cultivators Association, it was possible for them to conduct a large-scale search in the vicinity. Why wasn't anyone intercepting them? But what Lin Yi didn't know was that the CEO and He Luonan were both heavily injured. Both of them suffered serious internal injuries. But even so, the CEO didn't dare kill He Luonan. He only asked the association to send someone to take He Luonan away. After all, He Luonan's death would be a huge grudge. But now, they were only heavily injured, and both of them weren't feeling well. This was the end of the matter. When they recovered and calmed down, they could talk about who was in the right and who was in the wrong. But for the time being, both of them were heavily injured, and they didn't have the chance to negotiate. If the person in charge didn't say anything, the subordinates wouldn't act rashly either. So this matter was delayed, and Lin Yi found a huge loophole. In fact, Lin Yi was a little regretful after entering the Songshan orphanage's account. First, whether the transfer was successful or not. If He Luonan found out, he wouldn't be able to leave Ruelei to town. At that time, the association and Red Conch would send people to search for him. Chapter 3270. As for He Luodu, it wouldn't be easy for him to cause trouble here. After all, he had suffered a loss once. He wouldn't come for an orphanage again. Plus, they didn't know if this orphanage had anything to do with Lin Yi or not. After all, this was just a donation account for Songshan Orphanage. Anyone could transfer money to it. Maybe it was a charity account that Lin Yi randomly entered to trick He Luodu. But now that Lin Yi had safely arrived at Island X, there was no need to think about it anymore. Outside the airport, there was a car with a butterfly logo. Lin Yi knew that this was Yang Qiqi's car. Lin Yi was very familiar with this SIG. He'd worked for this organization for many years. And it was through this symbol on Qiqi's ring that he recognized Qiqi as an assassin of this organization. He'd treated Qiqi as well. After Lin Yi got off the plane, he got into the car with Su Shirhan and Changyi. As expected, Yang Qiqi was smiling and waving at them. What made Lin Yi nervous was that little Jiao was there too. This girl, who often helped Lin Yi in his daily life and missions, made Lin Yi's breath tighten. Lin Yi knew what little Jiao was thinking, but Lin Yi's thoughts were different from the past. At that time, Lin Yi thought that the people of the assassin group were all drifting, without any future to speak of, and it was impossible for them to know their own future. So he ignored little Jiao's hints again and again. Including Yuning's confession, Lin Yi kept it in his heart. But it was different now, and Lin Yi's way of thinking had changed as well. Facing these feelings, Lin Yi didn't have the same concerns as before. After all, everyone's fate would be the same in the future. Little Nine was also an inheritor. In essence, she was no different from Mingyao, Yushu and Xiao Xiao. They were the same type of people. So, Lin Yi could be honest with her now. He just didn't know that when she saw him again, would the feelings in her heart still be love? A favorable impression from childhood might be able to persist stubbornly for many years. But when one became an adult and met again, one would realize that this favorable impression was just a child's play. In reality, things were still the same, but people had changed. When Lin Yi saw little Jiao again, his feelings were very complicated. Lin Yi didn't know what he thought of little Jiao as. Was she a childhood playmate, or just a little sister? Or did she have a trace of first love? To be honest, when Lin Yi was young, he really liked little Jiao and little Jiao. But as he grew older and knew his mission, he hid this trace of feelings in the bottom of his heart. Over time, Lin Yi didn't even want to meet little Jiao and little Jiao face to face, because after meeting, Lin Yi didn't know what to say. This was also the reason why Lin Yi didn't return to Island X, the place where he lived as a child, all these years. However, now Lin Yi had thought it through. Some things couldn't be avoided if you wanted to. Some people were destined to appear in the trajectory of your life. Just like Yang Qiqi, they met again and again in the trial. Like little Jiu, although they often contacted by phone, Lin Yi avoided the emotional problems between the two again and again. However, little Jiu unexpectedly became an inheritor. This made Lin Yi unable to avoid it again. The women around Lin Yi already had too many inheritors, and with little Jiu joining them, Lin Yi couldn't refuse. Fate seemed to be playing a joke on Lin Yi. Everything from the beginning to the end had never changed. Ninth Princess, long time no see. Lin Yi adjusted his emotions, got in the car, and greeted little Jiu. Oomph. Little Jiu saw Lin Yi, and although there was a flash of surprise in her eyes, she still snorted coldly. Long time? You didn't want to see me, right? Little Jiu's words inevitably made Lin Yi a little embarrassed. Lin Yi laughed dryly, and didn't continue her topic. He turned to Yang Qiqi. Qiqi, the Overseas Practitioners Association didn't find trouble with you again, right? Not really. They just asked a little, and didn't find me again. Yang Qiqi shook her head. The association, naturally, wouldn't be stupid enough to touch Yang Qiqi. After all, Yang Qiqi wasn't an independent practitioner without any foundation. Even if she was, questioning her without any evidence would chill the other members' hearts. Everyone joined the Overseas Cultivators Association to seek protection from the organization. However, if the members were to be suspected and questioned, who would want to join the association in the future? Fortunately, little Jiu only complained to Lin Yi a little, venting her dissatisfaction. She didn't blame Lin Yi too much. She used to be in charge of the entire assassin organization's intelligence and coordination work. In her position, nothing in the assassin organization was a secret to her. Seeing assassins die from time to time, she was already numb. She knew what Lin Yi was thinking. Lin Yi was also an assassin, and he couldn't see his own future. Lin Yi couldn't promise her anything, and he didn't dare to promise her anything. That included her and Yang Qiqi. So little Jiu really didn't blame Lin Yi. Now her identity had changed, and Lin Yi's identity had changed. Only then could there be a future. But this future was also very uncertain. That inheritor project, whether it was dangerous or not, whether Lin Yi could participate in it, these were all unknown. It could be said that although Lin Yi's thinking had changed, his situation wasn't any better. In fact, it became even more unknown. Lin Yi bro, don't think too much. The future will come to an end. These days, let's just play on the ground like when we were kids, okay? Little Jiu had thought it through, and decided to cherish the good times in front of her. Okay. Lin Yi was also mentally and physically exhausted during this time. Plus, Lin Yi had to face the troubles that would come after he returned to Donghai City. His true strength had been exposed. Once he returned, the Black Horse Society, the Everyday sect, the Dongfeng family, and even the ancient Feng family would come looking for him. When that time came, with so many people looking for trouble, how would he deal with them? Since he couldn't think of a solution right now, Lin Yi might as well stay here and relax. This time was too tiring. Chapter 3271. Lin Yi didn't have to worry about Miss Mingyao anymore. She was now the Palace Master of Dark Palace, and a Palace Master with real power. She was completely different from Yiwan Heir. Who would dare cause trouble for her? Shu's identity was there as well. She was the inheritor of Flaming Mountain. Even if House Yu didn't take care of her in the dark, she still had the name of Flaming Mountain. House Yu could show it to the world anytime, and no one would dare touch her. As for Wang Xinyan, although she didn't have any inheritor status, she was still Xiaolong's fiancée in name. With Kong Ming, the elder of the Sky Elixir sect, no one would dare touch her. The girls in the villa were fine. As for the others who were related to Lin Yi, but didn't live with him, he didn't have to worry. The ancient people weren't that reckless. Common noble houses weren't much, but the ancient houses and sects wouldn't drag them down for no reason, just because of Lin Yi. So, after considering the pros and cons, Lin Yi calmed down and stayed on Island X, Planning to relax for a few days, Lin Yi's considerations weren't wrong. When Elder Xianxin learned that the everyday and everyday sex Pure Yang Sky Lord had broken through to Sky Class Late Phase Peak in order to avenge his junior brother, Pure Yin Sky Lord, he was overjoyed. Father-in-law, this everyday and everyday sect is really a strange sect. Hatred can actually increase the speed of training. It's really strange, Kong Mingming said, confused. Yes, that's how their sect is, but how they train has nothing to do with us. It's useless even if we know their arts. Let's focus on the main points. Elder Xianxin had no interest in the other sect's arts. This was because he was restricted by the uniqueness of the practitioner's arts. Even if he knew someone else's arts, he couldn't practice it. He didn't even know the main points of it. He practiced blindly without anyone's guidance. Even if he destroyed his current arts and started from scratch, he might not be able to practice it successfully. Instead, it was easy for him to go berserk. This was why no one had ever studied Lin Yi's arts. Studying it wouldn't be useful, so what was the point? Yes. Shall we release the news now and inform the Dongfang clan, the Black Horse Association, and the Everyday and Everyday sect? Kong Mingming nodded and quickly asked. Alright. It's time. Patriarch Xianxin nodded and agreed with Kong Mingming's decision. In fact, Lin Yi didn't have much strength. He was chased by the Overseas Cultivators Association like a stray dog. The ones who killed those Heaven Rank Peak Late Stage and Perfect Heaven Rank Peak Late Stage experts were the three ancestors of the blood-clothed underworld sect. For a time, the entire ancient era was in an uproar. However, since this news was released by the Five Elements sect, the ancient era's sects did not doubt it at all. After all, the Five Elements sect was a lofty existence in the ancient era. It was impossible for them to speak carelessly, and there was no need for them to speak carelessly. Moreover, for this kind of thing, as long as they had connections overseas, it would be fine. Which of these ancient sects did not have a personal friend in the Overseas Cultivators Association? After all, cultivators from the Overseas Cultivators Association would occasionally come to participate in trials, auctions, and other activities. Of course, most of the ancient era sects were shocked when they heard the news. Among them, there were also some who were angry and worried. The ones who were angry were naturally the sects that had people killed. At this moment, these people hated Lin Yi, but they hated the blood-clothed underworld sect. They hated them to the core. The blood-clothed underworld sect did not put the other ancient era sects in their eyes. You casually killed the high-level cultivators of other ancient era sections. This is simply breaking the rules. Are you so overbearing? Do you think you are invincible with two perfect heaven rank experts? Even powerful existences like the Five Elements sect are not as overbearing as you, right? Since Lin Yi is still overseas, then let's use the ancestors of the blood-clothed underworld sect as sacrifices. As for Lin Yi, after dealing with the blood-clothed underworld sect, there was no need to worry about not being able to deal with Lin Yi. These ancient era sects also knew very well that Lin Yi must have offered some conditions that the blood-clothed underworld sect could not refuse. However, no matter what the conditions were, the ancestors of the blood-clothed underworld sect were dead, and Lin Yi had no one to rely on. However, even if he could not kill the three ancestors of the blood-clothed underworld sect, he had to kill the weakest, gloomy ancestor, and then make the blood-clothed underworld sect spit out a lot of benefits in order to appease the anger of these sections. This time, several ancient era sects that did not form an alliance with each other finally sat together. The Everyday and Everyday sect, the ancient Dongfang family, the ancient Feng family, and the Black Horse Society participated in this revenge meeting. Of course, Feng Tianhu only participated as a bystander and kept a low profile. His attendance was only to give advice and to confirm that Lin Yi did not have that kind of strength. Feng Tianhu, are you sure that Lin Yi really lost his strength? Dongfang Badeo's cold eyes looked at Feng Tianhu. If it wasn't for this Feng Tianhu who encouraged his daughter, the Feng family would not have lost so many people one after another. However, then again, the Dongfang family did not think that a small Lin Yi would cause so much trouble. Yes, Elder Dongfang, I placed a spy beside Su Shihan, And now this spy is also responsible for investigating the news related to Lin Yi. Feng Tianhu nodded affirmatively. That's right, Elder Dongfang. I've placed a spy around Su Shihan, and he's in charge of investigating Lin Yi's whereabouts. Feng Tianhu nodded affirmatively and said, but what is certain is that Lin Yi did not lose his strength, but his strength was originally not high. The rumors outside were all exaggerated. This is all the credit of the blood-clothed underworld sect. So, as long as we destroy the blood-clothed underworld sect, or in other words, make the blood-clothed underworld sect stop, then we can kill Lin Yi. Dongfang Badeo nodded and asked. Yes, or, we have the ability to force the blood-clothed underworld sect to betray us, and let them kill Lin Yi. This is the safest way to achieve the purpose of killing with a borrowed knife. Feng Tianhu continued to nod and said, this is a good idea. After Dongfang Badeo listened, he agreed, and then turned to look at the president of the Black Horse Society, Qian Puguang. President Qian, what do you think? Chapter 3272. Then he continued. Although we have 4 peak late heaven stage great perfection experts, the supreme elder of our Black Horse Society is in seclusion all year round and doesn't come out to ask about anything. It's a bit difficult to count on him to take action. I will try my best to convince him. However, even 4 peak late heaven stage great perfection experts may not be able to kill the 3 bloodcloth underworld sect great perfection experts. After all, these 3 old ancestors are not weak, and they have been living a life of blood all year round. In terms of combat experience, we are not as rich as them. Yes, I also agree with President Qian's point of view. Pure Yang Heavenly Lord said. I think, as long as we kill gloomy old ancestor, and then force bloodcloth old ancestor and underworld ancestor to surrender, let them kill Lin Yi, we can turn weapons of war into gifts of jade and silk. This is the best way. I agree, Dongfang Badeo said quickly. Among them, his strength was the weakest. Although he was infinitely close to the great perfection strength, he was not yet. So in this way, if they wanted to kill the 3 bloodcloth underworld sect great perfection experts, 2 groups must fight to the death. Then, he and gloomy old ancestor would inevitably be the weakest existences. The 2 of them would also be the first sacrificial victims, which was not what he wanted to see. However, with so many people killing gloomy old ancestor together, and then forcing bloodcloth old ancestor and underworld ancestor to surrender, this was very easy to do. At that time, both sides would sit down and talk, and there would be no more fighting. Well, we have set this tone. We will kill gloomy old ancestor together, and then force the other 2 old ancestors to surrender. This way, our goal will be achieved. At this time, the most respected ancestor of the everyday and everyday sect, Ancestor Mad Bull, spoke. This was also the conclusion of the meeting, and it was the final decision. Then let's get ready. Tomorrow, we will rush to the headquarters of the Bloodcloth Underworld sect and find the 3 old ancestors. President Qian said. The early task of the vengeance meeting had been determined. Of course, if the Bloodcloth Underworld sect agreed to kill Lin Yi instead, then these people would not have to worry about it, and the second meeting would not be held. However, while these people found out about Lin Yi, the 3 ancestors of the blood-clothed Netherworld sect also found out that Lin Yi was being hunted by the Overseas Cultivators Association. Bloodcloak ancestor, Yellow Spring ancestor, that's what happened. What should we do now? Ancestor Eerie Woods hurriedly relayed the news that the intelligence team had obtained to the 2 ancestors. Although Lin Yi has yet to return from overseas, I'm afraid that there will be a period of bloodshed when he returns, right? He reckoned that there was a big problem. Moreover, it's not just him who's the problem now. I reckon that those sects that lost people will want to take revenge on us, right? Ancestor Eerie Woods' words made the blood-clothed ancestor and Yellow Spring ancestor frown. Yes, things actually turned out like this. They didn't expect that Lin Yi's stroll overseas would cause so much trouble. If they had known earlier, they would have followed Lin Yi. At that time, the 3 ancestors thought that it would be troublesome for them to go overseas with their identity, so they didn't follow. Moreover, Lin Yi only went to help Su Shirhan and Cheng Yi contact overseas businesses. They didn't expect that there would be more problems. But now it was useless to regret. They could only think about how to deal with the upcoming storm. Bloodcloak, it's better to call Master and ask for his opinion. The development of the situation now is not the time for the three of us to make a decision. Ancestor Yellow Spring pondered for a moment and said, "That's right. Then who should make the call?" Blood-clothed Ancestor nodded and said in agreement, "Let's go with Eerie Woods. We used to contact him through Eerie Woods." Ancestor Yellow Spring thought for a moment and said, Ancestor Eerie Woods didn't decline. He picked up the phone and dialed the number that Lin Dongfang left for them. "Master, it's me, Little Eerie Woods from Blood Cloak Yellow Spring Sect," Ancestor Eerie Woods said politely after the call was connected. "Oh, Eerie Woods, what's the matter?" Old Man Lin picked up the phone. Since Ancestor Eerie Woods contacted him, there must be something big that they couldn't decide on. "It's like this." Ancestor Eerie Woods didn't hide anything and told Lin Dongfang everything that happened in detail. In the end he said, "Master, we don't know what to do now. I'm afraid we can't protect Little Master anymore. Even we can't protect ourselves." "I understand. Wait for my call. I'll give you an answer in 10 minutes. Old Man Lin said indifferently as if this matter didn't affect him at all. Okay. Ancestor Eerie Woods said quickly. Old Man Lin hung up the phone and didn't stop. Although his tone was indifferent, the expression on his face was far from relaxed. He frowned and dialed another number. "Old Emo, it's me." Old Man Lin dialed his old friend Emo Kongwen's number. "What's wrong, old friend? What's the matter?" Emo Kongwen asked. "Little E, is there any trouble in the near future?" Old Man Lin asked. "What happened?" Emo Kongwen asked quickly. "It's like this." Old Man Lin told Emo Kongwen the situation in a concise manner. "Let me take a look." After Emo Kongwen finished speaking, there was no more movement on the other side. Old Man Lin didn't panic. He knew that Emo Kongwen must be calculating something. As expected, after a while, Emo Kongwen said slowly, "Yes, but it's not a dead knot. Can he resolve it himself?" Old Man Lin asked after he relaxed a little. Maybe not. Emo Kongwen sighed and said, "I can't interfere with what's happening now. My strength is only SOSO, comparable to his opponent." "You haven't broken through yet?" Old Man Lin asked quietly. "Do you think it's easy to break through the heavenly Tao? Do you think everyone is as crazy as you?" Emo Kongwen smiled bitterly. "Then will Little Yi's life be in danger?" Old Man Lin thought for a while and continued to ask. His future has already been decided. The moment he went to Songshan City and accepted that mission, it was already decided. Emo Kongwen didn't answer directly. "I understand." Old Man Lin's heart was at ease after hearing this. Chapter 3273. Look for you? Okay, let's go over now. Gloomy Forest Ancestor was slightly taken aback and immediately understood Lin Dongfang's meaning. If someone wanted to harm them, then with Lin Dongfang around, no matter how bold they were, they wouldn't dare to act rashly. They had to suffer this grievance, even if they didn't want to. Lin Dongfang didn't say anything more and hung up the phone directly. Gloomy Forest Ancestor relayed Old Man Lin's words to Blood Cloak Ancestor and Netherworld Ancestor. Blood Cloak Ancestor, Netherworld Ancestor. With Master here, there's no longer any suspense in surviving this calamity. However, in order to not implicate our sects, I suggest we act in a high-profile manner and directly announce that we're going to the West Star Mountain Village. This way, the people from the Everyday and Everyday Sect, Dongfang Clan, and Black Horse Society will directly go to the West Star Mountain Village to find us. Eerie Ancestor suggested. Your proposal is very good. Blood Cloak Ancestor nodded in agreement. Then let's go immediately. The three old ancestors left as soon as they said they would. However, before they left, although they couldn't say that they spread the news to everyone, they still marched towards the West Star Mountain Village with great fanfare. This action fell into the ears of the Everyday and Everyday Sect, and the other two sects who were preparing to seek revenge from them. These clans and sects once again gathered together. This time, They originally decided to go to the blood-clothed underworld sect together. However, before they left, they received a piece of shocking news. The 3 ancestors of the blood-clothed underworld sect actually went to the West Star Mountain village? What kind of place was that? Pure Young Heavenly Venerate, your everyday after sun sect is very knowledgeable. Do you know what kind of place this is? President Qian Boguang of the Black Horse Gang asked curiously. I don't know, but it shouldn't be a big place. How big can a village be? Pure Young Heavenly Venerate shook his head and said, Don't worry about where this place is. We should first figure out what the 3 ancestors of the Blood Cloak Underworld sect are doing there. I think it's possible that they know that we are going to retaliate against them. So they deliberately found a godforsaken place to hide? Dongfang Badeo pondered for a moment and said, This was the only speculation he could think of. After all, the 3 ancestors of the blood-clothed netherworld sect went to a place that they had never heard of, and it was a sudden move. It was a bit strange no matter how one looked at it. Especially now, the 3 ancestors of the blood-clothed underworld sect must have received the news that the everyday sect, Dongfang clan, and Black Horse Society were going to join forces to deal with them. There is this possibility. Heavenly Venerate Pure Yang nodded. Ancestral Master Wild Bull, what do you think? Kwangyo was a man of virtue and prestige, but he spent most of his time in seclusion. He didn't have any other thoughts. He thought about it, but didn't say anything in the end. He turned to Pingliang and whispered, Mr. Zhong, what do you think? This time, Zhong Pingliang participated in this revenge plan to gain experience for himself. First, he and Linny had a deep hatred. Second, after he ate countless treasures and elixirs, his strength finally rose to the peak of the late stage of Earth class. Now he was only one step away from Heaven class. If he wanted to break through, he must have an opportunity. Although the everyday sect also had elixirs like Gathering Chi Pill, Zhong Pingliang was a person who wanted to be promoted to the Heavenly Tao. He certainly wouldn't take any Gathering Chi Pill easily. However, Zhong Pingliang's current identity couldn't be exposed. His identity was only known to the disciples of the everyday sect. His identity to the public was a military advisor of Ancestral Master Wild Bull. Of course, it was understandable that Ancestral Master Wild Bull respected him a little. In the past, many emperors were courteous to military advisors, and the ancient sects who followed the ancient etiquette naturally didn't find it strange. So this wouldn't arouse the suspicion of others. I think that we've made a mistake, Zhong Pingliang said faintly and majestically. We must know what the 3 ancestors of the Blood Cloak Underworld sect are doing. Why must we know? What they do has nothing to do with us. Our goal is to find them, kill them, or make them surrender. The world is so big. Except for Heavenly Island, is there any place we can't go as a group? It's really a wake-up call. Mr. Zhong is really a genius. Although Chunyang Tianzuan felt that Zhong Pingliang's words were reasonable, it didn't reach the state of enlightenment. However, he was Zhong Pingliang's disciple, so naturally, he didn't forget to flatter his master. And Dongfang Badeo and Qian Boguang, although they didn't think that Zhong Pingliang's words were so magical, they also felt that Zhong Pingliang's words were right. Their purpose was to find the 3 ancestors of the Bloodcloak Underworld sect to settle accounts. Who cared about what they were doing in the West Star Mountain village? Thinking of this, Dongfang Badeo also nodded. Mr. Zhong is right. Then let's pack up and get ready to go. So the revenge squad formed by these people also followed the direction of the navigator and went to the West Star Mountain village. However, when they set off, the 3 ancestors had already arrived at the West Star Mountain village at this moment. For the masters of the peak late stage of Heaven stage and the masters of the peak late stage of Heaven stage, it actually didn't take too much time to run to the West Star Mountain village with their legs. In the yard last time, the ancestors of the Bloodcloak ancestor, the Netherworld ancestor, and the Mad Bull ancestor once again met their master, Lin Dongfang, who they respected and feared. Bloodcloak greets the master. The 3 ancestors, who were highly respected and famous in the ancient world, at this moment in front of Lin Dongfang, greeted him respectfully like children. Well, you're here. Lin Dongfang glanced at the three people in front of him and nodded. Master, it's our fault. Not only did we fail to help the little master, but we also brought trouble to the little master. Now the three of us can't even protect ourselves. The ghastly forest ancestor had a bitter face and apologized carefully. Lin Dongfang waved his hand indifferently. Although he didn't get a clear reply from Mo Kongwen, Lin Dongfang already knew at this moment that Lin wouldn't have too big a problem. He should be able to get through it. As the saying goes, things will sort themselves out when they get there. Therefore, Lin Dongfang didn't blame the three people in front of him. In any case, the three people in front of him had good intentions. Without their help, Lin wouldn't be able to resolve the crisis so easily. Chapter 3274. Lin Dongfang said to them, "All right, let's not talk about this. Have you eaten yet? Let's go, I'll treat you today. Let's go to Widow Wang's snack shop and have some wine. I haven't had meat in a long time." Old Man Lin's words made the three old ancestors speechless. Go to the snack stall to have a sumptuous meal? Did Lin Dongfang have to be so miserable? He was an elite in the Tao of Heaven, and he had actually fallen to a state where he had to go to a snack stall to eat. This was practically inconceivable. However, they didn't dare to say anything. In their opinion, old Lin didn't want to earn money, because he wanted to train Lin. Therefore, Ancestor Ensign quickly said, "No need, we'll treat you, master. This small amount of money is nothing to the Bloodcloak Underworld sect." Ancestor Ensign didn't pretend to be polite. What he said was the truth. The Bloodcloak Underworld sect was an assassin organization in the cultivation world. They had plenty of money. Lin Dongfang smiled faintly and didn't feel embarrassed. When Little E was an assassin in his master's organization, he earned a lot of money for me. However, I donated it to the orphanage and the poor mountain area. Master is right. We should donate too. Ancestor Ensign was a smart man. He quickly said, "No wonder little master always helped Songshan Orphanage. It's because of your teachings. We're deeply influenced. When we go back, we'll donate all the Bloodcloak Underworld sect's spare funds to Songshan Orphanage." "That's not necessary." Lin Dongfang shook his head. "It's not easy for you to earn money. It's fine if you donate some, but not all. This is Little Yi's business. We shouldn't interfere." "That's right. Master is right. If we interfere too much, he won't be able to gain experience." Ancestor Ensign said quickly. As the four of them spoke, they arrived at the snack and grocery store opened by Widow Wang at the entrance of West Star Mountain Village. This was the only shop in West Star Mountain Village. "Dr. Lin, what do you want to buy?" Widow Wang asked passionately when she saw Lin Dongfang walking in. Lin Dongfang was a famous miracle doctor in the surrounding villages. Hence, he was highly respected by the people here. "Oh, I'm not buying anything. A few friends are here. Why don't you cook a few dishes for us? Let's drink a few cups," Old Lin said to Widow Wang. "All right, it's still the same old thing, right?" Widow Wang knew what Lin Dongfang liked to eat. Although Lin Dongfang didn't come here often, he would come here once a month to eat. Especially when Lin wasn't at home, Lin Dongfang would come here more frequently. There was no other way. When Lin wasn't at home, there was no one to cook for him. Lin Dongfang had to eat a few times a month to satisfy his cravings. "Sure, give me 4 bottles of ergotu." Lin Dongfang nodded. "Okay." Widow Wang was quite trendy and could even speak English. The 3 old ancestors were all cultivators, so they naturally had a high tolerance for alcohol. Although the alcohol content of this ergotu was high, it was nothing to them. Soon, the dishes and wine were served on the table. Although the restaurant was small, there were a lot of food. There was fish and meat and vegetables, and there was no shortage of side dishes. What a great place. "Master, the 3 of us give you a toast to thank you for saving our lives." Old Ancestor Eerie Woods, Old Ancestor Netherworld, and Old Ancestor Shui stood up at the same time and raised the first cup of wine respectfully. Lin Dongfang had no choice but to raise his cup and accept it. As for Widow Wang, even though she heard what Old Ancestor Eerie Woods and the others said, she didn't care. Lin Dongfang was a doctor, so it was normal for him to save their lives. It was no big deal. In Widow Wang's opinion, Lin Dongfang treated the three of them. So the three of them treated Lin Dongfang to express their gratitude. Therefore, she deliberately served a few more dishes. Anyway, it wasn't Lin Dongfang who was paying. Since someone was treating, she should take the opportunity to sell more. Lin Dongfang saw that there were several times more dishes than usual, but he didn't stop them. After all, there were many people today. Moreover, Lin Dongfang usually went on a diet to donate to those poor children. Today it was old ancestor Eerie Woods and the others who were treating, so he ate more and enjoyed the good food. The few of them toasted each other. Only then did ancestor Yin Sun and the other two become more familiar with Lin Dongfang. Seeing Lin Dongfang gulping down wine and eating meat, it was hard for them to associate this harmless old man with the ruthless Vajradul evils who had swept through the ancient times. After all, the difference was a bit too big. This kind village doctor and the terrifying demon king were two different people. Of course, although they were puzzled, they did not doubt Lin Dongfang's ability. Generally, the experts had their own habits and tempers. However, when the four people were eating happily, a group of uninvited guests came to West Star Mountain Village. "Young man, give me 5 pounds of sticky cakes. By the way, I will ask if there were a few old men who came to your village before dressed like us?" The one who asked the question was Dongfang Badeo. The cultivators at the ancient level generally wore robes, which were relatively retro. Although the Dongfang family was trendy, Dongfang Badeo would still choose robes when he attended some important occasions. The young man who was asked was a street vendor of sticky cakes in West Star Mountain Village. Seeing that there was business, he was naturally very enthusiastic and said, "Okay, speaking of old men who are dressed similarly to you, there are indeed 3 of them. Are you all together?" As the young man spoke, he skillfully weighed the sticky cakes and handed them to Dongfang Badeo. "Yes, we are together. They arrived first. The mobile phone signal in your village is not very good. We can't get in touch with them. Can you tell me where they are?" Dongfang Badeo took out 100 yuan and handed it to the young man. He said, "Don't keep the change. The rest is the travel fee." Of course, if they searched door to door, they could find them. But it was easy to alert the enemy. If the 3 old ancestors wanted to hide, they couldn't find each other. Moreover, it was a bit unreasonable for the ancient level to openly interfere with the secular world. So Dongfang Badeo chose the most convenient way to eavesdrop. "Really? Thank you so much." The young man happily took the money, then pointed to the direction of the village and said, "Are you from the big city? You guys are really rich." They went to Widow Buzzhead's restaurant as soon as they arrived. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.